The black-haired guy was in the laboratory. He was conducting an experiment. There is a process for any action. If you make the water molecules oscillate at high speed, heat is released and the water temperature rises. In other words, the water boils. The guy looked at the whole cooking process with interest. This was his mind magic. Soon the contents in the flasks were cooked. What the guy was cooking was black coffee. The black-haired guy called out to someone. 3 girls immediately approached him. They were all beautiful, but beautiful in different ways. The girls happily snuggled up to the guy. They looked at him with admiration. The guy's name was Shaw. The guy was in another world. It was in this world that his life was full of various things. Shaw searched the internet for knowledge about the primordial world, and using mind magic, he repeatedly invented cheats. This is the life he has gained through the twists of fate. It all started 2 years ago. He was an inventive video streamer. The guy showed interesting inventions using materials familiar to everyone from the production process. The show opened its channel on its 20th birthday, and as of the 3rd month of activity, the number of subscribers on its channel was only 5 people, which upset the guy a little. However, Shaw hoped for a better future for his channel. If he kept updating the channel every day, he was sure that one day someone would notice his video. And one day the number of viewers will increase dramatically. After being upset because of the small number of subscribers of the channel, the guy left on the same day to shoot, in order to create a new video. But the next moment the guy was in the woods. His backpack was lying next to him. The guy, waking up in an unknown place, at the same moment pulled out all the contents of the backpack. In his backpack there were such things as a towel, a lighter, a plate, chocolate, a container, and also a multi-tool. The guy was glad for the things that happened to be with him. Shaw then checked his phone. There was no signal on the phone and it will also run out soon. The guy forgot to charge his smartphone. But suddenly Shaw came to his senses. He looked at the place where he was with great surprise and horror. The guy didn't know where he was. Then, having calmed down, Shaw set off, trying to find a way out of the forest. He has been hiking since childhood, so he knew a lot. However, the guy walking through the forest did not recognize the plants. He had never seen anything like it. This brought terrifying thoughts to his mind. The guy was thinking that he might have accidentally wandered into a primeval forest that was developing on its own. Shaw also thought that he was in the afterlife or in another world altogether. Suddenly it started to rain in the forest. The guy realized that he needed to hide somewhere. At this time, he allowed the thought that he was in another world. Shaw, sheltered from the rain in a hollow tree, was thinking about another world. He saw no signs of magic or fantasy. It's been a while since the guy was in this forest. At night, near the campfire, he thought with regret that he had not even met the girls. He didn't want that kind of life. The next day, the guy wandered for a long time in the forest in search of someone. He was walking forward, leaning wearily on a wooden stick. Suddenly, Shaw stopped. There was a small field of white flowers in front of him. The guy noticed the large size of the flower. The flowers looked like bananesis, only those had 3 petals. Therefore, they are not as big as these flowers. Shaw also noticed that the tips of the flower petals were a little transparent, which made them look like a sunflower. Suddenly, the flowers began to tremble and wither. Along with this, black bright beads slowly emerged from them. Shaw was surprised. He took his phone out of his pocket to capture this amazing process of unknown colors. However, his phone failed him. It ran out of battery, from which the guy could only put the phone away. Then Shaw approached the flowers and took out a bead from them. After that, the guy looked at them with interest. He wondered if they were edible. The guy did not stand in one place. He continued on his way and soon reached the waterfall. Shaw sat down on a rock out of exhaustion. He was thinking about the possibility of finding other people. Suddenly, the guy felt pain. It turned out that he was bitten by a large insect that looked like a tick or spider. In horror, Shaw began to remove the insect from his hand, but he held on tightly to it. Soon the guy lost consciousness. After a while, the guy, still not waking up, thought that this was his end. After all, he saw the blurred silhouette of an angel. However, she was a beautiful girl. The girl saw that the guy had woken up. Shaw was stunned by her beauty. It seemed to him that he was in paradise. The girl did not understand what he was talking about. She tensely grabbed the magic staff. The girl wanted to know about his identity, whether the guy was sent to her from Camillo. Shaw didn't know Camillo. He didn't agree with the girl. The guy didn't think he looked suspicious. Therefore, in order to clear himself of suspicion, he introduced himself to the girl. It was the first time his interlocutor had heard such an unusual name as his. Shaw then thanked his rescuer for her help. The girl introduced herself to the guy. Her name was Rubia. It turns out that the show was paralyzed due to a spider bite, so he fainted. Rubia performed the decontamination with magic, but he can stay in her house until he feels better. Shaw realized that the girl was using magic, so he had entered another world after all. The girl turned in the other direction. She was interested in something. Namely, Rubia was interested in the guy's unusual things. The girl was curious, she wanted to know what it was. The guy saw a container in her hand. He told the girl that he found it in the woods. Then the guy opened the container. He explained that on the way he saw beautiful white flowers that wilted and died, and then red berries began to appear from them. Rubia looked at the contents of the container with delight. After all, these were small merch berries. Shaw did not know the names of these berries, he did not understand their meaning. The guy calmly realized this information. Then, unexpectedly for the girl, he offered to give her the berries. After all, Rubia had saved him. The girl panicked, the berries were too valuable. The guy didn't understand her panic. He did not think about their value and rarity because there were many of those flowers. They were not far from the place where he fainted. Shaw suggested that she go and watch them together. The girl, blushing, stared at her interlocutor in a daze. Then Rubia sheepishly and timidly agreed to the guy's suggestion. Shaw did not understand her strange reaction. He looked at the confused girl with bewilderment. From that day on, in Rubia's small house, Shaw began to live with the girl. The guy realized that he was in another world. This world was almost no different from the Middle Ages of his world, but there was no gas, water, electricity, or anything else in it. It was a low-tech world. The guy barely got water from the well. There are no status screens floating in front of his eyes. He was also attacked by a spider, which is an exception among exceptions since monsters rarely attacked him. This is different from all the stories about reincarnation that he knew. While the guy was thinking about reincarnation, a girl came up to him. She helped the guy with the help of magic to light the fireplace. Rubia invited the guy to start the meal. The guy looked at what had happened with a dazed expression. Shaw was delighted with the magic. Therefore, he began to speak in an embarrassed and timid manner. The black-haired guy understood his position to ask Rubia about it after she helped him. However, the guy asked her to teach him magic. Having said that, Shaw bowed to the girl. It's been a while. The girl explained that she would not be able to teach him magic until he became her student. Only then, as a true master, she has the right to teach him. A true master is the same profession as a scientist and an engineer. Rubia had a certificate of a true master. It looked like a pendant with a chain. There are many eccentric individuals who study magic on their own. For Rubia, a real scientist was a person who understands the reason for things and strives for the truth. And magic for her was the embodiment of this process. Not considering this, it's like putting a cart in front of a horse. Shaw understood the girl's words. Magic seemed like a convenient thing to him. Then clearing his throat, thereby attracting attention to himself, the guy wanted to say something. He thought it was wrong that he was forever beholden to a girl. That's why he wanted to get at least some kind of job. Rubia suggested that Shaw become a real scientist or something else. However, the guy did not agree with her. Shaw, falling on his knees and bowing in front of the girl, begged Rubius to make him his disciple. The girl was uncomfortable with this. After all, not everyone can become a real master. It was necessary to check first whether the guy had the right qualities for this. Shaw could do anything to study magic. So the girl asked the guy about his faith in God. The guy looked at her blankly but answered anyway. Shaw confidently said that he did not believe in God. He has never seen God and is used to trust only what he sees himself. Even if it's a great man talking, until he sees it for himself, he will only perceive it as a half-truth. The girl asked him about God's miracles. But Shaw has never seen a miracle of God either. If they happen, it means they have a cause and a process. The guy was confident in his statements. If a person discovers the reason and strives for the truth, he will be able to manipulate even God's miracles in his own way. Rubia stared at the guy, stunned. After all, he answered perfectly for a person that he wants to become a real scientist. The girl wanted to know the guy's identity. However, she informed the guy that it was just a verbal test. The real test was still ahead. After a while, the guy and the girl went outside. Rubia pointed her staff at the stove and invited the guy to light it. Shaw was surprised by the sudden offer. But if he understands the theory, then magic will accompany and help him. The girl stood silently after the words were said. She understood that it would be very difficult for the guy. Shaw was thoughtful. He was thinking about the theory of magic. In order to burn things, you need heat. The guy thought about the methods of creating heat. When the air is compressed, a lot of heat is released. That's how car engines worked. It occurred to Shaw that if he compressed the air, heat would appear. The moment the guy imagined it, a ball of heat suddenly flashed on his palms. Rubia was stunned by what she saw because the guy was able to create something so quickly. Then Shaw used his palm to move the ball of heat directly into the fireplace with firewood. Nothing happened for a few seconds. Suddenly, the ball of heat flared up again and lit the firewood in the fireplace. Everything worked out for the show. But something went wrong. The force of the heat ball was too powerful, so the fireplace completely caught fire and exploded. Rubia fell to the ground in surprise. The girl was covered in ash from the explosion. The sorceress wanted to ask the guy what reason he had drawn for magic. Shaw awkwardly revealed that he needed a heat source to light a fire for the fireplace. so he came up with the idea of compressing the air. The girl was surprised by his words. After all, he was a simple man who had never even studied a real master. She didn't understand how he was able to achieve this. Rubia agreed with the guy's suggestion. His idea was correct, but only as a theory. In this case, it was the wrong decision to do this as a process. He needed to imagine a reason why a fire could burn. The guy thought about it. In this case, the fire occurred as a result of the combination of carbon in the wood and oxygen in the air, thereby forming a Gorange element. Shaw was lost in thought. He wasn't looking from the point of view of the ignition image. However, Rubia said that the image was optional. He just needed to imagine the phenomenon of Gorange. At the same moment, the guy began to think only about the compounds of carbon and oxygen. A stream of magic immediately began to gather in his palm. Soon the fire appeared on the firewood. Suddenly, the fire suddenly ignited again. A huge stream of flame shot out of the chimney, but in this case the explosion did not occur. The firewood survived. Therefore, Shaw was pleased with the resulting fire. He looked at the flames in the fireplace with delight. Rubia was completely overwhelmed by the guy's strength and talent. After all, he was able to understand the whole logic of magic with a simple piece of advice. The guy happily reminded her about accepting his student. The girl was still in deep shock from what had happened. That's how Shaw became Rubia's disciple, the disciple of a real master. The guy didn't understand how he could use magic, knowing only physical phenomena. It seemed to him that anyone could do it, but the people of this world did not have even the most basic scientific knowledge. The guy was delighted to realize that magic was too simple for him. It was a great theme for his new video. With it, he will be able to gain more than 10 million subscribers. Now this number will no longer be a simple dream for him. When Shaw became a student of Rubia, his life immediately took on new colors. In addition to cleaning the house, chopping firewood, and searching for water, he now helps her collect plants and insects, which are the subjects of his research. They were walking through the forest. Meanwhile, Rubia was looking at the beautiful butterfly with interest. Shaw also practiced magic in his breaks from all business. It was fascinating. Suddenly, a girl called out to him. She asked Shaw what he knew about the theory of air compression. The guy knew that the expansion of air, unlike its compression, cools. If you vibrate with particles of matter atoms, then you can heat them up. And if you stop vibrating them, you can cool them down. Shaw had a lot more to say but stopped. The girl was surprised that the guy could know all this. Rubia also noticed that he had good manners. A great mind and good manners were a very rare combination found in a person. The girl wanted to know where the guy studied this. Shaw, lying, said that he was a simple student in his country. Rubia thought that his country had a very high level of education. However, Shaw actually dropped out of school in his country. Therefore, he was embarrassed by the girl's words. But the Japanese education was really great. Soon they came to the river. The girl said that if he understood logic well, then she did not need to teach him much. After all, he will be able to use other magic in the shortest possible time. Shaw was doing something in the river. The guy took a small stone in his hands and hit it on the surface in the water. After a while, fish surfaced on the surface of the river. They were completely immobilized. When the guy hit a rock underwater, the spreading shock wave caused the fish to lose consciousness. In this way, Shaw didn't have to catch them himself. Then the guy cleaned and cut the fish. After all the actions done with the fish, he left them on the stone. Then Shaw applied drying magic to the butchered fish. Soon the fish dried up, but it was just drying. To convert protein into amino acids, the guy used magic again, but now the magic of fermentation. And in the blink of an eye, the dried fish was completely ready. The guy happily noticed the usefulness of magic. He hung his dried fish on a stick. Time passed. The guy used different types of magic. Shaw used magic in his life to set things on fire, magic to heat things, and cooling magic. Also, in his everyday routine, he used the magic of fermentation of vegetation, thereby increasing crop growth. Magic also helped him to reduce his weight. Now he could easily carry various heavy objects. Magic related to physical phenomena was simple and did not require caste. The so-called initial magic. It was all simple but very useful in real life. Magic was only used on a smaller scale. He can light a fire in a cauldron, but he cannot turn the entire area into a sea of fire. He can heat the water in the pot, but he can't heat the water in the pond. Depending on how you use it, it can also be used as an attacking magic. While the guy was thinking about magic, he was cooking some kind of dish. For example, the magic of heating is based on the same principle as a microwave oven. Someone could have applied it to the human body. All the water in the body of a living being will boil, and it will be destroyed instantly. The guy was a little scared at the thought. After all, it was a terrible fate. Soon the food was cooked. Rubia looked with admiration at the appetizing-looking dishes. Their aroma smelled amazing. The food was very tasty. The girl noticed honey on the bread. Rubia wanted to know if the bees had stung him. But this did not happen because the guy put magic on the hive before collecting honey. However, if Shaw had collected a little honey, the hive would have subsequently recovered. The guy guiltily thought that he needed to make another hive for the bees. Rubia tasted the honey with delight. She didn't know that the guy could cook, but he never knew how to do it well, but the cooking process itself was quite fascinating for him. What Shaw meant was that he liked doing things in general. If he can't cook something, he'll do it all over again. The guy calmly ate the food he had prepared. After the meal, Shaw went outside. There were many bamboo-like plants growing around the house. The plant was called Ticarito. The guy noticed that the plant is easy to handle and can be used for a variety of things. Suddenly, the guy at the Ticarito cabin slightly injured his hand. Shaw realized with pain that he should have put on gloves. Then the guy remembered a recent conversation. Shaw asked Rubia about the existence of healing magic. The girl informed him that such magic exists. Then the guy wanted to know if this magic could cure any disease or injury. But healing magic wasn't that convenient. Basically, it increased the strength of the natural healing ability of the human body. Therefore, it was impossible if the disease was in the early or late stages. The guy enthusiastically wanted to ask the girl again about healing magic. In any case, it was impossible for the guy to use this magic at the moment. The girl warned the guy not to even try to figure it out. After remembering the conversation, Shaw had already put on gloves and cut off the bamboo. Now he needed to insert a thinner piece inside the cut bamboo. He did it with ease. Then Shaw stuck the resulting structure into the ground. A stream of magic immediately appeared near his palms. He then directed the ball of compressed air directly into the bamboo tube. The ball of compressed air easily penetrated into the tube. The guy immediately blocked the tube with a piece of bamboo, which was slightly thicker than the hole. Then the guy loosened the air compression. After the air weakened, at the same moment the bamboo cork flew up into the sky. Shaw, seeing this, laughed happily. The experiment was a success. If he had filmed it, it would have become popular among school-age children. The guy was thinking about how to charge his phone. He wanted to film the process of this experiment, but there was no electricity in this place. Suddenly, someone's voice sounded and Shaw was attracted by it. He turned towards the sound. There was a carriage with horses near the wooden house. A group of girls came to the door of the house. They wanted someone to open the door for them. Among the group of 4 girls, 2 were dressed in a maid costume. They came to meet Rubia. Shaw, hiding in the shade of a tree, looked curiously at the suddenly appeared guests. He was not familiar with this group of girls. The group consisted of 4 girls. The girl with glasses and the girl with cat ears were the maids. There was also a girl who looked like a true aristocrat. She was wearing a tiara. There was a bodyguard next to that girl. Rubia bowed her head and greeted Her Highness the Princess. To which the princess was unhappy. The girl wanted her to address her normally. Frowning and annoyed, Rubia wanted to know the reason for the princess' arrival. The girl and her entourage had already managed to go inside the house. She thought her reason for appearing was obvious. The sorceress thought that it was about an invitation. She had already refused the girl many times, but that was not the reason for the princess's appearance. It turns out that there were rumors about Rubia in the castle. They were about the famous witch from Farling keeping a little bird she found. It also said that the girl was wandering around, buying men's clothes and stuff. Suddenly, Shaw came into the house, from which all the girls were surprised by his appearance because it means that the rumors were true. The guy awkwardly offered to make tea for the girls. He didn't understand why they called him the little bird. In fact, he didn't even know what to say. Rubia, on the other hand, was stunned and annoyed that a group of girls had come all this way to talk about such a trivial thing. She was sorry to waste the princess's time. However, the princess did not think about it. She just stopped by Rubia's on her way home for work. Soon, Shaw made tea and served it to the guests. The guy introduced himself to the princess. He announced that he was a student of Rubia. The girl was interested because his name was strange even for a foreigner. But the guy did not pay attention to this. He prepared rare sweets from his country for the princess. The girl looked at the dessert in surprise. She thought the dish was made from a cow. However, this was not the case. Shaw served the princess chocolate. He explained to the girl that chocolate is very sweet and delicious. Then the guy invited the guest to try chocolate. Rubia and the princess looked at the chocolate slice with some suspicion. But the girls, having overcome their suspicion of unknown food, still tried chocolate. At the same moment, their cheeks turned red. With flushed cheeks, they were delighted to feel the incredible sweet taste of chocolate. They felt the pleasure that melts in their mouths. The princess did not know that such sweet and delicious food existed. Rubia looked at the guy with delight. She wanted to know information about chocolate and how to make it. Shaw explained that most likely, chocolate is made by mixing ground nuts from the southern islands at the edge of the earth with sugar. Then they were kneaded together until smooth. The princess thought about it because sugar was very valuable. It was very difficult to get it in these lands. So the girl asked the guy if he had any more chocolate left. Shaw told her that there wasn't much left, to which the princess wanted the guy to sell her all the remaining chocolate. The girl enthusiastically asked him about the price. She offered the show 3 gold coins. The guy realized that he was offered 3 gold coins. In this world, you could live on 2 silver coins a month. Considering that 2 silver coins are 100,000 yen, the 3 gold coins were 600,000 yen. The guy was completely delighted with the amount. Soon, Shaw received his 3 gold coins, and the princess took a whole bar of chocolate. She was sorry that she couldn't invite Rubia to the castle this time too, but the girl was able to get rich in the form of a whole bar of chocolate. After that, the princess said goodbye to them, slamming the door. Rubia and Shaw stared at the closed door in silence. When suddenly the princess's voice sounded again, the girl called out to them. The master and the disciple went out into the courtyard. They did not understand why the princess did not leave their house. It turns out that the princess was curious about the device that stood in the well. The girl wanted an explanation about the unknown instrument. Shaw told her that the device was called a buzzing pump. With it, he can pump out water from the bottom of the well. Then, after explaining, the guy showed how the pump works. The princess was shocked that water was coming out of the pump. She thought it was magic. However, this was not the case. It's just a trick, anyone can do that. Therefore, the girl also tried to move the handrail of the pump. The water immediately poured out. After that, the princess was curious to know the meaning of this device. At the same time, Shaw gave her a piece of bamboo. It was a toy that sends water flying. The guy showed the principle of operation of the toy. The princess looked at the bamboo toy with interest and curiosity. Then the girl used it. A jet of water flew out of the device. The water got right into the maid with the cat ears. She meowed and began to run away from the jet of water. The princess cheerfully started shooting water right at her maid. The maid was trying to hide from the water. Shaw also explained to the girl that if you block the hole of the toy, then the water will not come out. The princess understood his explanation. Then, after the guy's question, the girl realized that if there was a hole on the other side, then the water would flow out in her direction. Now she understood how the guy was able to pump water out of the well. When the pump moves up and down, a vacuum is created in the pipe. Then, when the piston is lifted, the water rises under pressure. It was the magic of real masters. The princess really liked the guy's pump device, so she again suggested to Shaw that he sell her a buzzing pump. After her suggestion, the princess tried to climb the well lid. Shaw was anxious to keep the girl safe from danger, but she continued to climb the well and soon rose to her full height on the lid of the well. The girl remembered that the guy introduced himself to her and told her his name. So it was her turn to introduce herself. Her name was Leela Farlane. The girl was Farlane's head of state. Shaw realized with deep shock the status of his new acquaintance. He was stunned that she was the head. The girl continued talking. She wanted the guy to accept her invitation in a confident and proud voice. Leela invited Shaw to her castle. After a while, the carriage with the horses quietly set off. In this carriage, a thoughtful Shaw sat silently with his backpack next to him. The guy recalled a recent conversation with the princess. He informed Layla that he was still Rubia's student, but it didn't matter to the girl. All she needed was his abilities. If he had mastered so many truths, then his lot was definitely not an apprentice. The girl also informed the guy that food and clothing would be provided by the state, and his salary will consist of 3 gold coins per month. The guy was stunned by the salary because it was 600,000 yen a month. For the guy, all the conditions sounded tempting. Now he will have to live in this world for a while. After all, it was good to have money. Therefore, the guy was happy to agree with Princess Layla's proposal, but he was stopped by Rubia's displeased shout. The girl warned him that it was just an invitation, so he didn't have to agree. The guy wanted to accept the invitation. After all, the conditions were very good for him. For the sake of the show, Princess Layla was ready to do anything. Rubia was stunned by the princess' words. Immediately, Princess Layla began to threaten Rubia. Otherwise, she might send an army against her. The sorceress refused to accept her request anyway, so the girl wanted Shaw to take Rubia's place. Rubia frowned at Princess Layla in silence, from which Shaw awkwardly called out to the master. It wasn't that far from the castle to Rubia's house. Therefore, Shaw can continue to fulfill his duties as a student, but Rubia did not agree with this. She couldn't let her inexperienced student with dangerous reasoning like Shaw's be left out of control. Therefore, Rubia made a decision. If Shaw insists on going to the castle, then Rubia will also go with him. The sorceress finally agreed to the princess's proposal. Suddenly on the way, the carriage suddenly stumbled over a stone, thereby causing all the people in the carriage to fall to one side. Shaw was most unlucky. When shaking the carriage, he hit the carriage window. However, the guy could not fully feel all the pain because he was distracted by Princess Layla. The girl leaned on him with her whole body. She was looking at the black-haired guy with flushed cheeks. Shaw also wanted to know the princess's condition. With his own words, he woke up the girl, who fell into an embarrassed state. Princess Layla, coming to her senses, instantly moved away from the guy. With a flushed face, she confusedly said that she was fine. The girl was sitting next to her maids. The maid with glasses was called Rumines, and the maid with cat ears was called Nimmo. Her Highness Princess Layla was already 15 years old, and she has been fully running the country since the king and queen died from the epidemic. The girl was still confused by the recent incident. She blamed the strangeness of the carriage. The throne could only be ascended at the age of 18, so having a regent was normal. But Layla is a person with great abilities, and she has experience in all matters related to the throne. She was so good at everything that even the ministers couldn't stop her. Shaw noticed that Princess Layla was small, but at the same time so strong. The girl looked at the guy indignantly. Suddenly, the carriage stumbled over a stone again, which caused Shaw to hit something again. He didn't understand what was wrong with the carriage. It was too uncomfortable to ride in, but the princess said it was a standard carriage. For a moment, he thought the road was too bad, but this was not the case. The guy noticed that the carriage was too rigid. The princess wanted to know the meaning of rigidity in the carriage. Shaw explained that a rigid carriage was a type of carriage with an axle attached to the body. After the guy's explanation, the girl was curious about other types of carriages. The rigid carriage could be improved by installing a suspension on it. Princess Layla didn't understand what the guy was talking about, but Shaw did not explain to the girl. He drew a bow, the shape he needed. He wanted to know about the existence of the shape of such a bow. This form of bow existed. Then the guy continued to draw, and soon another one was painted on the opposite side of the bow. If you combine them, you get a diamond. Then the guy finished the details in the drawing. After joining, they will expand and contract as shown in the figure. Then the guy suggested attaching them to the top of the wheel, then threading the axle under it, so that when the wheels pass over large rocks or bumps, the suspension expands and contracts. This way the carriage will not sway. The guy enthusiastically told his plan to others. The girls stared at him, stunned. They were surprised by his invention. The guy felt awkward. He did not understand the reason for their silence, because Shaw thought he had given them a clear explanation about the suspension. Suddenly, Princess Layla quickly got up from her seat. The girl with the tiara wanted someone to call Rassel. The maids were worried about the princess movement. They tried to calm the agitated girl because it was dangerous to stand in the carriage. Also, Rassel was not nearby. They could not call him. Shaw wanted to know who Rassel was. The maid Rumines explained to the guy that Rassel was a master craftsman. At the moment, the man was in the castle workshop. Suddenly, a girl called out to the guy. Shaw immediately responded. Princess Layla excitedly informed the guy that as soon as they arrived at the palace, the guy had to tell about the pendant in the workshop. They soon arrived at the castle. A workshop appeared in front of them. The workshop room was spacious and free. At the end of it, there was a fireplace in which inventions were created. Elves and dwarves worked enthusiastically in the workshop. Princess Layla wanted to find Rassel as soon as possible. Immediately, a man with gray hair appeared in front of them. He answered the princess's call. Rassel was surprised by the presence of the princess in the workshop. The man, bowing to her, noticed that the girl was in a good mood. Whereupon Layla stopped Rassel's bow. The girl wanted to show something to the man as soon as possible. After a while, a buzzing pump with a lid was completely located in the workshop. Water flowed from the pump when it was operating. In order for it to work, the pump was put in a bucket of water. All the workshop workers were stunned by the effectiveness of the invention. Rassel enthusiastically informed the princess that the pump would sell well. The joyful girl knew this. Shaw began his explanation about the pump. He made it out of bamboo. The guy would like to make a pump out of iron because the probability of failure of the device was very high. The man understood the guy's words. He understood that the iron device would indeed last for more than 10 years, although it will be quite expensive. However, Princess Layla didn't care about money. She didn't care how expensive it would be. The girl ordered the artisan Rassel to make a prototype pump using iron as a material. Then Layla wanted to add something else. Princess Layla also informed Rassel to create a carriage equipped with a suspension. The girl explained the principle of operation of the suspension in the carriage. The man appreciated the idea. This carriage could be sold at a good price. The girl knew that if a new high-performance carriage was released, the royal aristocracy would pay a lot of money for it. She was glad of that. Shaw started explaining about the suspension. He drew it in the form of a rhombic shape. In fact, it should consist of several boards of different lengths glued together. Rassel was curious why not one board was used, but a combination of boards of different lengths. Shaw noticed that the man was very perceptive. The guy explained the resonator using the example of jumping on a branch. After all, when bouncing, the branch swayed more and more. Rassel understood the example of the show. He played like that when he was a kid. Shaw continued the explanation. He said that if someone gets carried away while swinging, then eventually the branch will break. Laying boards of different lengths distributes the load and prevents breakage. For durability, Shaw would like to make a suspension made of steel. But it will be difficult to make it out of elastic steel, so the guy suggested using high-quality copper for this. Then with a smile, he informed me that it would be possible to make it so that the suspension could be changed regularly and parts could be sold. Then you could earn twice as much money. Layla was stunned by his words. The girl praised the show in a whisper. The guy turned out to be much more perceptive than she thought. The guy smiled at Princess Layla's praise. Shaw started talking about the design of the carriage again. He suggested to the artisans that they add to the carriage the ability to change the angle of the front wheels. Although it will be a little more difficult, but the carriage will become even more convenient. The artisans from the workshop understood the guy's explanation. They realized that the guy's offer would really make it easier to make turns and turns when riding in a carriage. The ride quality will also improve. The show saw the enthusiasm of the artisans. As it should be for people working in the manufacturing sector, they quickly understood all the words of the guy. The artisans also wanted to learn more about the design of the carriage. After a while, the guy was answered in the direction of his workshop. Shaw looked at the hut with delight. Now he has his own workshop. Princess Layla informed him that in the castle he would be able to find all the materials and craftsmen who would invent everything he wanted. The girl was counting on him. Then the guy went to his workshop. In addition to the workshop in the castle, there was also a blacksmith shop where dwarves worked. They created various devices from metal and other materials. The artisan workshop specialized in fine finishing and engraving. The elves were doing this, they elegantly painted things. The guy also noticed that there were all kinds of wood in the materials department. Iron was also available, but iron was a scarce and valuable material. Shaw scanned the entire castle. He also saw the maid's room on the way. There were maids he knew in it, namely Rumans and Numi. Numi was glad to see the guy. Soon, a door appeared in front of him. Shaw realized that this was the master's office. It took Rubia a while to pack her things, so the girl arrived late. She was putting her things around the office. Shaw wanted to help the master. However, Rubia refused to help because then she would not know where everything was lying. After that, the guy asked Rubia about the presence of other masters in the castle. The girl answered his question positively. The elven master of true learning was in the castle. The guy was excited about it. The real elf was somewhere in the castle. He wanted to see them. But suddenly Rubia approached him. Standing as close to the guy as possible, she said that the elf was very old. The sorceress warned Shaw not to dare approach the elven master. The guy still remembered Rubia's warning, but her words made him doubly curious. Shaw wanted to see real elves. Suddenly on the way, he saw a door ajar. Shaw became curious at the sight of her, so he came over. Because of the light in the room, the guy wanted to find out what kind of room it was. He wanted to go into the room. Suddenly, there was a clatter of heels near him. Someone called out to the guy in an angry voice, from which he startled and quickly turned in the direction of the sound. An elf appeared in front of the guy. She was annoyed by his presence. The girl did not know him and therefore thought that he was an imperial. The elf looked at the guy suspiciously. She still suspected that he was an imperial spy. Shaw was surprised to see that she was tall. The guy looked up at the elf in a daze. He had heard that the elves continued to grow in height until the very end. At the age of more than 1,000 years, they could have a height of more than 2 meters. The guy realized that this was the real master that Rubia was talking about. The elf looked at the stranger irritably. She still suspected the guy of being a spy. The guy anxiously immediately informed the girl that he was not a spy. He worriedly announced that he was a disciple of Master Rubia, to which the girl immediately changed. She grabbed Shaw by the chin and calmly examined him with interest. When the elf heard that Rubia had taken an apprentice, she became very interested in his appearance. Then, after her words, the girl wanted to know about Rubia's situation. She thought that she was so impolite that she did not even greet her colleague. Shaw also explained to the elf that his master was staying at the castle because Rubia needed to prepare for the move. Then the girl wanted to know why he, as a student of Rubia, did not come to greet her. The guy explained to the girl again that he had a lot to do, but Shaw promised her that he would come by later to say hello. It is still necessary to correct the situation. The elf was unhappy with the situation. However, she then pushed the guy into her office. The girl understood that the guy was unaware of her relationship with Rubia. Therefore, she will allow the guy to take responsibility for the rudeness of his master. Shaw wanted to know the identity of the elf. She immediately introduced herself to him. The girl's name was Stella. She said that if he was really Rubia's student, he knew exactly her status. Shaw also introduced himself in response. He reported that he was a student of Rubia. Then the guy hesitantly started looking for something in the inside pocket of his jacket. It was his gift in honor of meeting her. Soon the guy found the item he needed. He opened his palm and showed the girl 2 red berries. Shaw considered it a rather valuable gift. Stella was shocked by his gift. After all, it was a precious lil merch fruit, especially since the berry had a rare crimson color. Then the girl awkwardly took the gift away. She pretended to say that it was good material. After receiving the gift, Stella pointed the guy towards the chair. She informed him that he could sit on a chair while the elf brewed a pico drink. After a while the pico was ready, the girl handed him the guy. Shaw noticed that the drink was similar to coffee. Not only the appearance was similar, but also the aroma. Shaw took the cup and tasted the pico. The drink was delicious. Everything was perfect in it, the fragrant smell, the bitterness with depth. But still, the guy will miss his world. The guy, having tasted pico, wanted to find out if it was easier to get pico. The drink was easier to get, but it was a little expensive. It could also be purchased in the city. Stella promised the guy to tell him about her favorite store. Suddenly, the girl changed the subject. She wanted to know the guy's true identity. Shaw stared blankly at his companion. He didn't understand what she wanted to know. After all, the guy was just an apprentice of a true scientist. However, the girl did not believe him. Stella noticed that he had a high level of education and etiquette. On this continent, such education is only available to the children of royalty, nobles, and large shopkeepers. In her memory, she didn't know a guy his age who fit that description. Shaw was stunned that the girl knew everyone who was in her category. Stella remembered everyone because they were respected customers. Therefore, the guy admitted that he came from a country that Stella does not know. But the girl was still suspicious of him. His answer did not convince her. The tense guy just said it was because of the sea. That was all he could say. The girl did not like his cryptic words. However, Shaw was sure that there were things that Stella didn't want to know about. That's how it should be. The guy didn't want to tell the girl the truth. He warned her by telling her the proverb that sometimes curiosity leads to elimination. Shaw understood that being a disciple of Master Rubia, he was especially interesting to her. But they didn't know each other well enough for such a conversation. Stella just frowned at his words. Then the girl began to give an example of similar proverbs from her country of this world. She understood that, indeed, many people are happier if they don't know anything. Stella changed the subject. The girl looked with interest at the lil merch berries. She wanted to know where the guy found them. After all, it was rare to find such scarlet crimson fruits. Shaw told her that he had found them in the woods. The girl realized that if he found them in the forest, he probably saw flowers too. The guy agreed with that. Stella, after examining the berries, put them in her box. After a while, the guy drew a flower on the board from which a crimson fruit appeared. The flower had 5 petals and it was also white in color. Shaw noticed their beauty. Stella appreciated the guy's drawing. The painted flower matched the description from the legends. Then Shaw offered to look at the white flowers with him. The guy was familiar with the surroundings of the forest, but he wasn't sure if they would bloom when they came. Stella looked at the guy in a daze with flushed cheeks. Shaw looked at the girl in disbelief. Stella wanted to laugh at his uncomprehending look, but she restrained herself. The girl realized that he did not know the meaning of his words. Now she really realized that the guy was from a faraway country. Shaw didn't understand anything. It was almost a miracle that the show managed to see the flowers of Lil Merch. The guy was aware of this, but they quickly wilted. Having calmed down, Stella explained to the guy that it was impossible to just call someone to look at the flowers. Shaw did not understand the meaning of the girl's words. But then the guy finally got the meaning of Stella's words. His face immediately turned red from embarrassment. Shaw remembered Rubia's confused expression when he told her that they would be together until they saw the flowers that would appear who knows when. Now the guy realized everything. His face was completely flushed with shame. He understood the reason for Rubia's funny expression that day. Stella found out that the guy told Rubia that, to which the embarrassed Shaw tried to justify himself by saying that at that time he did not know about the meaning of those words. Stella, rising from her seat, slowly took off her cape, leaving it lying on the floor. The elf wanted to say something. Stella slowly approached the guy. If he talked to her like that, it meant that Shaw had no relationship with Rubia. The girl gently touched the guy's chin with her finger. Shaw looked at her with embarrassment. The girl said in a seductive voice that then maybe she would try with him. Stella looked at the guy with her charming gaze. Shaw could only stare at her stunned. But then the guy came to his senses. He didn't understand why Stella had chosen him. After all, she can choose anyone with her charm. The girl, taking her hand, seductively said that she was tired of all the other men in the castle. The guy tensed up from the actions of the elf Stella. The girl, without stopping for a minute, knocked the guy over on the sofa, forcing him to lie down. Stella wanted to see how the guy would use resistance or anti-magic magic. Suddenly, the door to the room burst open. Rubia stood grimly in the doorway of the office. The sorceress looked at them in the room with a gloomy look. The guy called out to the master in embarrassment. Rubia silently approached them. They were still on the couch in an ambiguous position. Approaching, Rubia tore the guy and the girl apart, throwing them off the couch. An angry Rubia grabbed the guy by the collar. She thought she wouldn't see him in Stella's office, but he was there. The girl had previously asked him to stay away from her. However, the show had no choice. Suddenly, Stella approached the guy, grabbing him in her arms. Shaw could only blush at her actions. The elf spoke in a seductive voice, thereby embarrassing the guy more. However, Stella did not stop acting. She approached the guy's ears, noticing their roundness. The girl wanted to get to know him better so that the guy would fall in love with her. Rubia called out to Stella. Frowning, the sorceress wanted Stella to step away from the show, but the elf refused to leave the guy. She was excited and didn't want to stop. Stella then informed Rubia that she would not be able to stop because he had called her to look at the white flowers. The sorceress screamed in shock at her words. Embarrassed, Shaw wanted to explain himself. After all, Rubia hadn't told him exactly what it meant to invite someone to view the flowers. That's why he told Stella about it. Stella approached the embarrassed guy again. She watched the show with delight. The girl reported that Shaw was different from the other guys she had met. It seemed to her that they were made for each other. However, Rubia interrupted Stella. She rudely called out to the elf. The elf and the guy looked at the sorceress with uncomprehending looks. She was trembling from the emotions that overwhelmed her. But then Rubia gathered her thoughts and confusedly informed Stella that it was Shaw who first told her about viewing flowers together. The girl closed her eyes because she was too embarrassed. Her whole face turned red at the confession. For a moment, everyone in the room was silent. Shaw looked at Rubia with flushed cheeks. He did not expect such a confession from her. Stella burst into loud laughter. She was amused by Rubia's innocent words, causing the witch from Farlane to blush indignantly. Rubia blushed and became angry at the girl's words. Then, with embarrassment, Rubia indignantly said that she was only 24 years old. Therefore, her naivety was unimportant to her. But she's not as old as Stella because she was already 450 years old. Hearing about Stella's age, Shaw looked at the girl with admiration. He was surprised that she was 450 years old. That's what it meant to be a member of the elf race. The guy looked admiringly at the frozen elf. He could not imagine that someone could live so long. Stella was angry at his words. She said something about memory. It turns out that an angry Stella wanted to erase the guy's memory in order for him to forget her true age. Then the girl used magic to aim at the show. However, he was shocked to be able to dodge her magic. The guy looked anxiously at the angry girl. Soon, the dust from her attack settled down and the silhouette of a girl appeared. Stella, looking at the guy with a gloomy look, reactivated her magic. This time the girl won't miss. The boy's shrill screams could be heard from Stella's office. Smoke from her attacks was coming out of the cracks of the office door. Princess Layla came running to the loud noise. She was curious to know the reason for their noise. Shaw quickly ran towards the girl. The pale-faced guy informed Layla that the office was too dangerous. Without saying anything else, he easily lifted the girl into his arms, noticing her lightness. Then Shaw, without turning around, rushed out of the office. He was followed by Stella's furious scream. After a while, the guy was able to break away from Stella. Breathing heavily, the guy was tired from running for a long time, so he leaned against the wall. The princess noticed that the elves were really wise, but not everyone can be guided by common sense. Then the girl happily noticed that they had reached the stairs in the tower. She informed the guy that there was a beautiful view at the top of the tower. Princess Layla wanted to show him this view. Shaw also noticed that there were a lot of steps on the stairs. The tower was too high. The guy complained that he would like an elevator. It was the first time Princess Layla had heard the word elevator, so she wanted to know what it was. The guy explained to her that when installing a cabinet on top of the tower, they could use a rope to lift it in a drawer. But this will require a person who will pull the rope. Therefore, they will attach a load slightly heavier than the girl to the rope, and then lower it from the upper floor. And then someone will slowly pull it up. Princess Layla was delighted to understand the mechanism of the elevator. But first, they needed a person who would pull up a kettlebell in the elevator. That's all they can do at the moment. The guy understood this because there was no electricity in this world, but the guy thought it was a bad option. After all, where one side wins, the other loses. When one tries to make life easier, the other suffers. Soon, Shaw and Leela climbed to the top of the tower. The guy appreciated the beautiful view from this place. Princess Layla informed him that she sometimes came to the tower. When she sees a city illuminated by fluorites, her heart clears up. The girl knew that she was in this position only because of her vassals and people. The princess was looking into the distance as she spoke. Shaw himself told her that when someone tries to simplify everything, someone else suffers. This also applies to the royal power. When those in power try to simplify everything, it becomes too hard for the people. After all, the girl was only 15 years old, but she already understood a lot about life. Princess Layla called out to Shaw. She had high hopes for the guy. With a true scientist like him, the festival will definitely be successful. The girl informed him enthusiastically that they would develop the country. Shaw understood that with his knowledge of the old world, he could help this country develop. But the guy was only worried that an excessive fascination with technology would be considered heresy. However, on the other hand, if people from other countries also visit them, then he will be able to find clues that will help him return to his world. Princess Layla and Shaw were looking at a beautiful view. Shaw then called out to the princess, thereby attracting her attention. He enthusiastically informed her that they would do their best, namely, a great invention that will enrich this country. Farlin was a small town that was also a state. Shaw had been in this castle for a little over half a month. The guy couldn't stand it anymore. Shaw lay down wearily on the floor. His stomach was grumbling from hunger. The guy really wanted Japanese food. The guy wanted to cry from his sad situation. Shaw wished with all his heart that he could eat miso soup and onigiri again. After a while, the guy went outside. He was in the market at the castle. There were many stalls in this market, and a variety of goods were sold in them. The guy was looking for rice and miso at the market, but there was nothing even close to these products. He was able to find barley, but barley was not even close to rice. Shaw also noticed that there was a large selection of fish products on the market. It seems that the culture of drying and transporting fish is well developed in this world, except for those that can be found nearby, as transportation took a long time. Another integral part of Japanese cuisine is soy sauce. For its preparation, the guy wanted to find glutamate somewhere. Soon the guy found himself in front of a counter with seafood. The seller wanted to help the guy with the search. Then Shaw reported that he was looking for dried sea grass. The man was surprised by his request. However, the seller started looking for the product among his products. After a while, the man took out the seagrass, but he was not sure if this product was the right one. After all, the seagrass was all white and moldy. The seller informed Shaw that he was going to throw it away because he couldn't sell it. Shaw was stunned. After all, it wasn't mold. On the contrary, the seagrass was of the highest quality and added flavor. Therefore, the guy immediately notified the seller that he would take them. The guy also bought dried fish. He asked the seller to give him seagrass as a gift. The man gladly gave him the groceries. After a while, the guy was holding a huge bag of groceries in his hand. He was happy because he went shopping. After dragging the bag to the house, he laid out the groceries. The guy bought cereals, vegetables, and other products. To start the show, I wanted to try to make a broth for a seaweed soup called kelp, according to a recipe from my world. He remembered that he had to cut the seaweed into small pieces. Then he had to pour hot water over the kelp. After that, it was necessary to sprinkle a little salt on top, and then you will get instant soup. After all the actions, the guy enthusiastically tasted the soup he had prepared. It was amazing. The guy enjoyed the aroma and gorgeous taste of the soup. It was exactly kelp-like from his world. From the taste of the soup from his world, Shaw remembered his mother. She was probably worried about his absence. The guy didn't even know if his world had been preserved. Maybe he was the only one who lost consciousness from the shock caused by the disappearance of the light. He felt sad from such thoughts, so the guy continued to experiment with food again. Shaw came up with the idea of using a water wheel from the workshop. After all, if you use it, you could make a barley mill. A mortar and pestle would be enough for the amount he eats. But it was hard and exhausting, so the guy tried to just mechanize it all. The guy used a water wheel, with the help of which he was able to create a mechanism for peeling barley. The huge mortar was mechanized, and the tool cleaned the barley itself. Soon, the guy received a peeled cereal. Then, after receiving the peeled barley, Shaw cooked the cereal. After cooking, the guy tasted the resulting food. Although there was a peculiar aroma, but the cooked barley was delicious, it was just too dry to make tortillas out of. The next day, Shaw got down to a really great thing. This is the first time he will cook miso in another world. Rubia looked suspiciously at the enthusiastic guy. He was up to something strange again. Shaw wanted to show his master a brilliant first step in the history of this world. Miso was made from soybeans. The guy found the beans, but they didn't look exactly like soybeans from his world. You will also need salt for the dish. She could be found in this world without any problems. Rice malt was also needed, but the guy didn't have rice, so he would use barley malt instead. It will be more like barley miso. It took a long time to cook miso, but there was magic in this world. Therefore, the preparation of the dish will be very easy. The guy enthusiastically approached the case. Even if it didn't work out, I could always try again. First, the guy poured water over the barley and then heated it with magic. It was a magical microwave oven. The guy also magically heated the tools to at least 100 degrees. In any case, disinfection was very important. If germs get inside, it will immediately fail. After all the actions, the steamed barley is divided into small portions. Next, the guy applied growth-stimulating magic to him. When the guy used magic on the barley, something started to appear on them. Rubia thought it was mold. The girl informed the guy that they would not be able to eat this dish because of the mold. However, Shaw reassured her. He explained that the yellow stain that appeared on the barley was not just mold, it was sesame mold. The miso that was sold in Japan had a white mold, but there has been a mutation in this world. Everything should have been enough for such a volume. Koji will be ready soon. After a while, the sorceress smelled a pleasant, sweet aroma from the cereal. Then, after the aroma appeared, the beans were steamed and mashed again in a magic microwave oven. Then Shaw and Rubia carefully mixed salt and barley malt with their own hands. After that, they formed balls out of them. Rubia looked at the guy suspiciously. She still thought that the dish would be inedible. But the guy assured her that if the fermentation went right, the dish would taste good. Next, they packed everything in a sterilized jar. After that, they had to close the jar tightly with a lid. Shaw then cast a spell to speed up the fermentation process. Maturation lasted about an hour with breaks in between. The guy sat down wearily on the floor. Rubia calmly sipped tea. Everyone was waiting for the cooking. Using magic, the guy was able to speed up the cooking process from about 1 year to 1 hour. Soon an hour passed and the dish was ready. Shaw, opening the lid of the jar, smelled the aroma of cooked miso with pleasure. The miso made in another world was now ready to be consumed. The guy looked at the dish with admiration and joy. Rubia didn't trust him yet because she had never heard of miso. Meanwhile, far away from them in the courtyard of the castle, there was a maid with cat ears. Nimue was doing her cleaning job, namely sweeping the yard. The maid wanted to know where this pleasant smell came from. The smell of the dish was spreading from Shaw's house. The guy showed the girl what he had prepared. It was a dish of miso soup with pork. The girl did not know about such soup, to which the guy explained to her that it was soup from his hometown. He used kelp and dried fish for the broth. The miso soup also included vegetables such as potatoes, onions, and carrots. Unfortunately, he did not find a product similar to radishes. Besides the miso soup, the guy also cooked barley rice. Shaw also grilled the meat. He prepared all this as an addition to miso. Soon the guy served all the dishes on the table. Fragrant steam spread through the room. Shaw put bamboo sticks along with the food. Now it was really true Japanese food. The guy was tearfully eating the food he had prepared. Along with the familiar taste of the food, he could feel the Japanese spirit in it. Then the guy told Rubia not to be shy and try the dishes. However, she was a little afraid to eat unfamiliar food. Suddenly, someone knocked on Shaw's house. Along with the knock, a voice was heard calling out to Shaw. It turns out it was Numi. She wanted to know what they were eating. The maid was attracted by the fragrant smell of food. Then the guy offered the maid to try the food he had prepared. The girl, approaching the table, went into shock. Nimue frowned at the sight of the unfamiliar food. She thought that the guy had cooked dishes from insect eggs because for her, barley looked like them. She was also scared by the appearance of the miso soup because of its muddy water. Shaw informed the girl that he wasn't going to feed her something like that. He explained to her that it was just pork soup. Suddenly, Stella entered the room. Elf called out to Shaw. Besides Stella, Princess Layla also entered the room. The guy greeted the girls. Stella was very hungry. She and the princess smelled the pleasant aroma of food. The guy wasn't worried about uninvited guests. After all, he cooked a lot of food because he knew that everyone would come for a pleasant aroma. Shaw didn't know if they would like it, but he gave them a taste of the food. After a while, Nimue, having tasted the food, now looked at the dishes with delight. She began to devour the food greedily because it was too delicious. Rubia, looking at the enthusiastic maid, also wanted to try. After tasting the soup, Rubia unexpectedly felt a pleasant taste. Stella didn't understand why the food, which looked like unappetizing images, was so delicious. Princess Layla thought the same way. Then Princess Layla saw that there were carrots in the soup. She hated carrots because they were too bitter. But after tasting the carrots from the soup, she felt a pleasant taste, which is why the girl was surprised. The guy explained to everyone that the taste had changed due to a process called alkali removal. He also said that kamado ashes are used to remove bitterness. It was the first time the girls had heard about such ashes. They were surprised by his abilities. After explaining to them about the removal of bitterness, the guy gave an ordinary carrot to Numi, for example. The maid tasted the vegetable and felt an unpleasant bitterness. After the demonstration, Shaw soaked the carrots in water and put lye on them. With the help of magic, he accelerated the process of alkali reaction with the product. Numi took a carrot from a plate of water. After tasting it, she was surprised to feel only the pleasant taste of the vegetable. The bitterness of the carrots has disappeared. The maid thought it was magic. But the guy didn't agree with her. He explained to her that he was just using magic to speed up the reaction process. Even without it, they can soak carrots in lye overnight. Stella was quietly surprised by this. She didn't know about the alkali removal. Then the elf got up from the table. She thanked the guy for the delicious food. But now that she had satisfied her hunger, Stella also wanted to satisfy another one of her desires. The elf approached the guy with lightning speed, causing him to blush with embarrassment. Numi, seeing this, looked at them with interest. She was agitated, her cat ears were moving with excitement. If Stella can do it with the show, then so can she. Then Nimue jumped on the guy. Shaw was knocked over by them on the bed. Stella and Nimue were now lying on top of the guy. Elf informed me that she had had this threesome for a long time. It was good when a beastman was involved in the process. However, nothing happened. Rubia, holding a magic staff in her hands, looked at the guy with a gloomy look. He could only run away from the girls in panic. Suddenly, his hand was suddenly grabbed. It was Princess Layla. She approached the guy and hugged him. With a seductive gesture, the girl asked the guy for something sweet after dinner. Shaw couldn't answer for a moment, his face flushed with embarrassment. Then the guy came to his senses. He did not understand what the girl was talking about. To which Princess Layla was indignant. She meant a dish that was black and sweet. Shaw realized that it was about chocolate, but he didn't have any more chocolate. Princess Layla will never forget the taste of chocolate. She remembered dessert with bliss. The guy called out to the girl. He wanted to see if she could get the sugar. The girl got angry at his question. After all, sugar was precious. If she got sugar for herself, people would think she was extravagant. Princess Layla didn't want to be like greedy aristocrats. Out of anger, the girl pushed the guy away. She informed him that she had responsibilities. Soon, her sad cry was heard. The princess pretended to cry with sadness. After all, if they hadn't sold all the new items, then maybe this wouldn't have happened. Stella and Numi shamed the guy for bringing the princess to tears. Rubia looked at it in silence. Shaw was confused by the whole situation. Suddenly, Princess Layla stopped crying. She looked down at the guy and ordered the guy to come up with something. All Shaw had to do was take her order and do it. The girl already remembered the guy's promise with an impudent smile that he would deal with this problem. Now Shaw can't refuse because he promised her. And the words spoken in the presence of the royal person could not be undone. After a while, everyone dispersed. It was already evening. The guy was sitting alone in his house. Shaw was puzzled by the chocolate problem. He didn't know what to do. The guy could replace the sweetness with syrup. The so-called malt sugar from barley. It used to be used to make drinks. When barley germinates, it produces an enzyme that converts starch into sugar. But even if the show does cheat by making syrup instead of chocolate, then it will only be a matter of time before Princess Layla starts demanding chocolate from him again. There was no cocoa in this world. Shaw hadn't even heard of it here. Therefore, the guy was thoughtful because he did not know if there was any substitute for cocoa. Suddenly, the guy remembered something. He had read that somewhere in South America, when frying a large spider and eating it, it would taste like chocolate. In that part of the world, it was a treat, so the dish should be delicious. Then, thinking about it, Shaw remembered being stung by a spider near a waterfall. Then he was almost eliminated. Therefore, the guy was a little worried that he would use a spider. After a while, the guy opened the door to his master's office. He called out to Rubia. The sorceress was busy reading a magic scroll. The guy asked the girl about the spider. Shaw wanted to know if the spider lives near the waterfall. The girl said that the spider lives near the waterfall. This spider preys on animals that congregate near the water. That's why spiders are so common near reservoirs. Shaw understood the girl's explanation. Rubia looked at the guy suspiciously. She wanted to know what he was up to this time. Shaw smilingly informed his master that he wanted to eat this spider. The sorceress looked at her pupil with disbelief. She asked him about it again, but he again said about eating a spider. The girl turned pale and covered her mouth. She was silent for a moment from shock, but then she asked the guy if he even knew the name of this spider. Shaw looked at the girl with an uncomprehending look, but she didn't want to tell him anything about it. However, the girl made the guy's decision to eat the spider. She then warned him that the spider had venom glands in its head and chest. So the guy went deep into the forest to catch the spider that had the audacity to attack him. At the moment, Shaw was enthusiastically looking for a spider. He used to be the main character who was defeated by slime at the beginning of the role-playing game. However, now the show had magic. He was confident in his abilities, so the guy was looking for a spider with fun. Suddenly, there was a rustle in the bushes. A spider appeared in front of the guy, similar to the one from the waterfall. However, this spider was so huge that it could be called not a spider but a crab. Shaw stared warily at the spider that appeared. After all, the spider that bit him was just small in comparison. It would be easy to destroy him. It's enough just to warm it up with magic. But the guy remembered the information about the crabs. When they are destroyed, they begin to smell unpleasant. The show doesn't like that, but this spider was definitely similar to a crab. There was even an urban legend about it. So the guy decided, instead of warming up the spider, just freeze it. With the help of magic, he easily defeated the spider. In any other case, it would have been problematic, but Shaw froze him to the point where he would not be able to walk. Then Shaw, laughing, grabbed the immobilized spider and put it in a bag. After a while, the guy returned to the house. During his time in the forest, Shaw was able to catch 3 large spiders. Pulling them out of the bag, the guy immobilized the limbs of the spiders with a rope. Then, with the help of magic, he heated them. When heated, the color of the spider shell changed from chestnut to purple. The guy did not feel an appetite at the sight of this, but he believed that the spider could already be eaten. Then Shaw divided the spider into its component parts. He put the poisonous parts separately in a bowl. The venom in the spider's gland was paralytic, so the guy thought about using it as an anesthetic. The black-haired guy, having removed the poisonous parts of the spider, began to eat. Breaking the covering of the limbs, he saw meat inside, like a king crab. Shaw didn't think there was poison in there, though, but he still looked at the meat warily. However, the guy stepped over himself and bit the meat. After tasting it, the guy was delighted to feel the great taste. It was even better than crab meat. Now Shaw wanted crab fried rice. The guy calmed down. He didn't do it all for the sake of crab-like meat. Shaw tasted the bodily fluid from the spider's belly. It tasted bitter, like coffee. After a while, the guy went back to his master's office. He notified Rubia that the chocolate was ready. Then the guy showed the girl a bowl of sweets. They looked much redder than cocoa chocolate. She realized with horror that he had made him out of a spider. Her eyes widened in shock. The guy happily wanted to eat chocolate, but the girl screamed at him in horror to stop. She did not want to see him eat this chocolate. Shaw frowned at her scream. He was frowning at the girl. For Rubia, this chocolate should not be unpleasant just because it is made of a spider. After all, the girl was a real scientist and she had to check everything. Rubia blushed with shame at his words. The girl had to eat chocolate. She reluctantly brought it closer to her face and quickly ate it. But after a second, her expression changed to delight. The chocolate was delicious. This chocolate tasted better than before. Rubia wanted to know how the guy did it. Shaw explained that he started by using bodily fluid from the spider's abdomen. The sorceress gave a startled cry. Then Shaw mixed the liquid with malt syrup, heated it a little so that it gave off the flavor. The mixture itself is not saturated enough, so the guy added fat from milk to it. With fresh ingredients, lots of cream and butter, this chocolate turns out to be tastier than the last store-bought version. Suddenly, the guy noticed that Rubia wasn't listening to his explanation. She was passionate about eating chocolate. The guy, leaving the master's office, warned her that he was not yet convinced of the safety of the product. That's why she shouldn't get carried away with chocolate. Shaw wanted to go to the princess to report on the preparation of chocolate. Soon the guy found himself in the throne room. He informed Layla that he had made chocolate. The princess praised the show for that. Nimue was carrying this chocolate to the princess. The princess wanted to know about the ingredients because Shaw had told her that they were hard to find. Shaw informed her that he had found a replacement for them. Then he took out a spider. Layla wanted to faint in horror, but the maids arrived in time and did not let her fall. The guy finally found out the spider's name. The angry princess wanted to know why he was purple in color. But it was not uncommon for medicines to be made from parts of the body of animals and monsters. The princess hesitated, but Rumines came to her rescue. The maid volunteered to be the first to taste this chocolate. Rumines, having tasted it, was delighted to feel the sweet and rich taste. She couldn't stop eating it. Layla was happy about it and wanted to try it too. But suddenly something happened to Rumines. The girl turned pale and covered her mouth with her hand. Everyone was scared by the sudden change in the maid. The guy picked up the fallen Rumines. Everyone was concerned about the maid's well-being. Rumines leaned against the guy. With seductive sighs, she asked the guy to just call her Rumi. Shaw, blushing, stared at her stunned. The girl, breathing heavily, blushed. She was calling Shaw in a seductive voice in prostration. The guy realized the whole situation. He quickly ran away from the throne room to his master, leaving the girls alone. The guy hoped that even if there was poison in the chocolate, then Magister Rubia would be able to overcome the condition with the help of magic. Soon the guy found himself in the girl's office. He called out to the master in a worried voice. However, the girl was already lying on the floor. She was panting and in the same condition as Ruminesis. The girl looked at the guy with a voluptuous gaze. From the effects of the chocolate effect, every part of her body turned seductively red. The sight of the sorceress made Shaw's nose bleed. The girl, still breathing heavily, could not believe that he had forced her to eat it. Then her scream went all over the castle. She called the guy a fool. After a while, the guy found himself back in the throne room. The chocolate he cooked had an exciting effect. The effect will be too strong that even the master will be defeated by him. The mark on his cheek proved it. Princess Layla was happy about it. She wanted to start mass production of this chocolate immediately. The guy was shocked by her words. It seemed dangerous to him. However, due to the effect of chocolate, many people will want to pay a fortune for it, especially if there is no antidote. The princess was sure of it. After a while in the artisan's workshop, Rassel enjoyed eating the cooked spider. A man has been looking at spiders since childhood. He couldn't believe that he had been missing out on such a delicious dish for decades. Then the man praised the guy for coming up with the idea to use the spider for food. It was the idea of a real master. Now that they know how to make chocolate, they should prepare for its mass production. The man told the guy that lately he felt that they were standing at a turning point in time. It was a turning point. It was as if a ladder had suddenly appeared on an empty plain. However, the man did not know where it led, to heaven or hell. The artisan appreciated the man's words. He believed that the center of the world would be in Farlane, because nowhere else was there such an invention as theirs. Shaw was glad that they appreciated it. However, they had to face many difficulties. Russell did not understand what difficulties the guy was talking about. Shaw explained to him that the biggest problem for them was fuel. They needed it to shape the invention and spread it around the world. But they only had firewood and coal, and it was hard to get good coal for iron production. The city's population is growing, and only this will lead to a shortage of fuel. The forests of Farlane are full of firewood if you cut down the trees, but that won't solve the problem. If the forest is cut down, it will return to its original state for hundreds of years. There was also the possibility that cutting down trees would lead to desertification. This is how cities in the world of the show sank into the sand. Besides, the guy had heard that the forest had shrunk significantly since Princess Layla was a child. Because the trees were cut down for fuel, it was not very cold in Farlane in winter, so they are not used for heating. The trees were used for daily cooking and kindling of the bathhouse. Charcoal was used as fuel in the forge. All this is provided by the trees in the forest. And if the city continues to develop, the population will grow. The consumption of firewood and charcoal will grow at an accelerated pace. It would be nice if coal or oil existed in this world, but no one has even heard of such things. Although the artisan was aware of the harmfulness of cutting down trees, he believed that it was just a forest. However, Shaw disagreed with this. The rich lands of Farlane, water, rain, and climate, all this is possible only thanks to the forests. A forest is a huge reservoir that stores water so that people can use it. If you get carried away with momentary money, you can destroy your own country. The men were surprised by Shaw's words. The black-haired guy was thinking about the future. After a while, Shaw climbed to the top of the tower. He was looking at Farlane's view alone. This place was very relaxing for him. Then the guy took out his phone from the inside pocket of his jacket. Holding the phone in his hands, the guy would like to take a photo of the beautiful view of Farlane. He was sure that would be fine, but the phone was dead. The guy thought about coal, oil, and electricity. He needed their existence. Suddenly, the guy had an idea. He wanted to come up with something with magic. The show needs to get energy. The next day has come. The guy clapped his hands in joy. He came up with an idea and wanted to try it out. The show enthusiastically applied magic. He was one of those people who, when they have an idea, can't resist trying it out. At the moment, Shaw was casting a drainage spell on the stream next to the workshop. It was an artificial stream of a windmill. Initially, he was going to put up a garden, but this will lead to a decrease in air pressure. At a place where there was a lot of water vapor, he was going to cast a spell to reduce the pressure there. The flow of magic caused the air to move. Soon the sky darkened and lightning appeared. The guy was delighted with it, but then he came to his senses and removed the magic. Shaw got too carried away. It could get pretty dangerous. After a while, the guy hammered an iron stick into the soil. The guy understood that he should have been more careful. Now being in the house, Shaw used magic again, and immediately clouds and lightning appeared in the sky. The lightning headed towards the iron stick. Shaw finally summoned a lightning strike using magic. It turns out that if you make a large cloud column, you could charge it in about a minute. The range of magic is about 100 meters. The guy couldn't have done more than that. Then Shaw went to the place of impact. As he approached, he felt an unpleasant smell of ozone. The guy thought that he would be harmful. If the current is strong, then the show may be able to use it. If they create a narrow space in the shape of the letter T and a strong current passes through it, then this will be quite possible. While the guy was creating a T-shaped pillar, Rumines suddenly came to him. Shaw noticed the girl in the doorway of his house. The maid informed him that Nimue had heard thunder and was very scared. That's why she came to check. The guy realized that he was to blame. He informed her that he had been experimenting with magic. Then the guy and the girl went outside. This will be his last experiment. Rumines was worried about his actions. Shaw explained that he would do so that lightning strikes the iron bars and melts them. Shaw used the thunderbolt spell after the explanation. Although his magic did not require pronunciation, a beautiful girl was watching him. As a former fan of Outrageous, the guy couldn't just stand. Shaw then effectively summoned lightning. Rumines suddenly screamed in fright, covering her ears. Rumines was stunned by everything. The guy, approaching the iron bars, realized that he had succeeded. If he could control lightning, he could melt at will. Soon, a furious hail was heard. An angry Layla ordered the guy not to flash lightning inside the castle. Shaw could have destroyed it. The guy was forbidden to experiment with lightning bolts in the castle. Shaw was depressed that he couldn't do a quick magic experiment. Maybe that's why the master went to live in the forest. The guy had experiments that he wants to try, therefore he had to prepare himself. Shaw made a plate with a hole that will gradually decrease in size. The guy inserted copper into the plate, beaten out in the forge in the shape of a rod. Copper is soft and stretchable, so the diameter could be gradually reduced by passing the copper wire through the hole. Shaw did not think that such a thin, twisted wire could be made by hand, but it was enough for him. In order to soften the wire, it had to be burned, but he did it with magic. The problem was in the shell to prevent a short circuit. There was no vinyl in this world, so he wrapped it in paper coated with a mixture of nakava and oil. Shaw has heard that paper wrapping is better than vinyl, but I didn't know if it was true. Wrapping the thin leather around the forged rod, he wound a copper wire on top. He got a reel. The difference in the number of turns may have been important, but it was still an experiment. The next day, the guy met Numi on the way. The girl was hiding from him in the shadow of a pillar. The girl asked the guy, scared about the thunder. Shaw informed the girl that everything was fine. The princess forbade him to experiment in the castle, so he went to the forest. Numi understood that. She timidly informed him that although Shaw was kind, the girl was still afraid of him. The guy asked the girl that the maid not only took care of the princess, but also protected her. The girl agreed with him. Then the guy gave an example of what she would do if lightning appeared, and Numi would have to convey an important message or the attacking bandits would use lightning magic. If the girl gets scared and runs away, she will lose her job. Numi was upset about it, she didn't like it. But the girl didn't know what to do. Then Shaw invited the girl to look at experiments with lightning magic. Then she'll get used to it. Numi timidly agreed to his proposal. They needed to find a spacious place, and preferably there was a river. Nim screamed at the back of the show's master because she couldn't keep up with him. The guy said that he is so fast because of magic, because he casts a weight loss spell on himself. And Nim was the only one who could reach that speed without magic. The beastmen were really amazing. They also had to tie the coil to a wooden pole and later pull one end of the copper wire up, and the other one had to be stuck in the ground so that it could be slowed down. Shaw immediately told the girl not to raise her head, because unlike magic that can be directed and fired, this magic simulates natural phenomena and therefore cannot be controlled. And even to be honest, you can never know where it will hit. If they are not careful, the magic can hit them directly, so they need to keep their distance. Finally, the magic lightning showed itself, and the guys loudly exclaimed that it was already beginning. The lightning struck directly into the pre-prepared coil. Nim screamed loudly. Shaw began to rejoice loudly that their plan had worked, and it seemed that lightning had successfully struck right at the edge of the reel. Their self-made coil ignited violently and later caught fire, which the guys also noticed. Nim exclaimed loudly and in fright that their coil was on fire and tried to make sure the master of the show that he saw it too. The master immediately ran, realizing that it was very dangerous. After all, if a fire breaks out in this place, it will be a complete disaster. And in this world, there were no means for firefighting, and if a fire starts, then the whole kingdom will come to an end. Shaw saw that the fire had begun to spread to the undergrowth. The guy hesitated and decided to use cooling magic, but immediately realized that this would not be enough. He tried to figure out how to put out the fire. Suddenly, he came up with an idea to try to create a vacuum and block the access to oxygen. The coil was able to go out and smoke was coming out of it. Shaw exhaled and said they almost set the forest on fire. Nim sadly said that she was still afraid of thunder. The master turned around and calmly said that she would get used to it soon. Although the fire was extinguished, the guy did not understand whether their experiment was successful. Shaw took his sword out of its scabbard and began to examine the metal on the coil while glancing at his sword. And he threw the metal from the coil into his sword. The master exclaimed joyfully that he had succeeded. As it turned out, the part from the coil became a magnet, and she became magnetized to the steel part of the sword. But this magnet was not that powerful, and it looked like a set of 100 magnets, and it also loses its magnetism very quickly. The guy realized that steel does not make a permanent magnet and considered it unfortunate. Shaw thought about it and realized that now he knows how to make magnets. Nim stood behind the guy and hoped that he would be okay. She also thought that it was all for nothing. The master turned around and started laughing, while adding that everything was fine. After all, the more they fail, the closer they will be to success. Although the magnets failed, Shaw realized that with the help of magic, you can achieve a lot depending on the combination. And it was already a good result. And this, of course, is not as cool as magic that needs to be spoken, but still you cannot underestimate magic, especially at an early stage. The girl told the guy that now that they had burned it all, they could go back to the castle and have lunch. They walked together towards the castle, glad that they would be able to eat very soon. And now they had already reached the next to the shops and were wandering between them. The woman handed the show to Pico, who thanked her. There is a simple compass in this world, and he was sure that there was some natural stone in this world. But it will be quite difficult to get it, even with the Queen's funds, it will not be so easy. And if Shaw has cobalt or neodymium, he can make a powerful magnet. And he didn't know where to find them or how to refine them. But there are also iron and platinum alloys. Shaw Googled about it in the past world. The guy had heard that platinum alloys were used in high-end audio equipment as powerful magnets before neodymium magnets were invented. The guy thought about platinum and also remembered that there is gold, silver, and copper in their world. Shaw has never heard of platinum here, and he didn't even know if she existed in the world, and I hoped that he would find out about it later. After all, if he has magnets and coils, he can make a motor, and if he has a motor, he can make a generator. And if you connect to the generator, you can do arc welding, unlike lightning welding. He is looking forward to it because controlled welding will be able to expand the range of actions and objects. Shaw couldn't wait for this. Suddenly, screams rang out from the alley. Someone asked to be moved away from him. Shaw didn't understand what the noise was and even thought it was a fight. There were 3 men and a girl standing in the alley, who was loudly threatened and told that she was finished. The girl was annoyed and began to draw her sword. She looked interesting. She had 2 tails on her head and gloves on her hands. Shaw realized that this was Her Majesty's bodyguard. 3 men started calling the girl names, and Shaw, who was watching them, didn't understand how they could treat her like that. One of the bullies said that if she had just kept quiet, no one would have been hurt. Shaw was thinking that this was Mizuki, or rather Her Highness's bodyguard. The guy didn't know what to do. The man in the raincoat wished the girl to disappear while calling her names, saying that she was a royal servant. The girl was silent and held tightly to the hilt of her sword. But what happened a few weeks ago? The queen addressed Mizuki, introducing her to the show, or rather the inventor of the new carriages. The girl introduced herself to the guy. He wondered how Mizuki felt about riding in a carriage. The girl said it was great, but usually she gets very tired after traveling in a carriage. But this one is so comfortable that she can even easily fall asleep in it. And Mizuki was sure that everyone would want to have one. Shaw said that the carriage has one drawback. To be more precise, it bounces on the same series of uneven surfaces, and he would like to use a softer material for the wheels, but he can't find it. After all, he would like to make a carriage that doesn't need a horse. The queen was very surprised that he wanted to make a carriage without a horse. Her Majesty began to laugh and then said that this is what a real master means, and if they make such a model, then they will be able to sell it, and it could also be profitable. Shaw awkwardly agreed. Mizuki paused for a moment and turned to Her Majesty and the master of the show, because she noticed that they got along well with each other. The queen started laughing and said she was right because he was her main specialist. Shaw decided to contact Ms. Mizuki because since they both have official business, he thought she would want to tell them a little more about her impressions of the trip. And the girl agreed. They were walking down a long corridor. The guy realized that she was from the Great Kamiot Empire. The girl immediately confirmed it and began to tell. The Great Kamiot Empire is a great power that is located to the east of the Far Strip. And if the Far Strip is the west, then the empire was probably in the east. Shaw didn't understand why he left his country. Mizuki was puzzled and tried to figure out how to explain it to her. The guy realized that he had made a mistake and asked for forgiveness because it was rude since they had just met. Mizuki asked him not to worry because it's not the first time they've met. She accompanied Her Highness when she went to Rubia. Shaw was extremely surprised by this news. He was very embarrassed and blushed and hesitated a little and turned to Mrs. Mizuki, because he hoped she wouldn't mind him looking at the sword on her belt. After all, he was in such an unusual shape, which is why he is very curious. Mizuki said that of course he could look, but it wasn't a sacred sword or anything like that. And now this sword was fighting with another one, which made Shaw's mouth open in surprise. The girl was stronger than the attacking man who was already holding on with the last of his strength. The guy was watching them, still with his mouth open. He was trying to figure out how to help her because no matter how good a swordsman she was, Mizuki won't be able to fight 3 people at the same time. Suddenly, the sword flashed with wild speed. The girl opened her mouth in surprise. Because she could be injured, drops of blood began to appear on the stone tiles of the street. Shaw couldn't stand it anymore, watching what was happening, and called the girl by name, and he also said that she was going to be attacked from behind. A ball appeared in the guy's hand, which began to spin and then blinded 3 men. They began to close themselves off from the light in order to hide from it. Shaw was standing angry and a bright light was coming from him too. Mizuki finally noticed him, but the men also paid attention to him, and they remembered that this guy was a scientist. One of the men, who had a beard, shouted to his men that they needed to run. Shaw and Mizuki silently watched the men walking away from them. The guy stood covered in cold sweat because he had managed to trick them with air compression magic, but he was clearly not able to stand up in battle. After staying in his thoughts for a while, he came to his senses, immediately sitting down next to Mrs. Mizuka to make sure that she was all right. The girl's shoulder was injured. She held onto him to stop the bleeding. Shaw loudly exclaimed that she was bleeding. He realized that he needed to stop him immediately. They were leaning against the wall and Shaw bandaged her wound, putting a twig under her bandage. He was able to provide first aid. The guy took Mizuki in his arms and shouted that they needed to get back to the castle as soon as possible, because the master definitely has some healing spells. And now they have already come to the master's house. Mizuki was lying on the mattress and she wasn't feeling very well, but the doctor refused to treat her. Shaw didn't understand why and had already started begging Stella, because unfortunately the master left to collect plants, and she is the only one he can ask now. The girl angrily said that she did not work here as a doctor. The guy did not know how to persuade Stella. He asked her to help her somehow. After all, if they don't do anything for Mizuki, then she will disappear. Shaw was already pleading with her, almost in tears. Stella looked at him in silence but then decided to put forward her conditions. She wanted Shaw to agree to spend the night with her and then she would think about it. The guy agreed and said he would do it and he would do anything. Stella thought that he thought she would be satisfied with such a forced agreement. After all, she actually has a woman's pride too. Shaw started apologizing. He was ready for anything. Stella chuckled and headed towards the injured Mizuki. Sitting down next to the wounded girl, the healer began to recite a spell to restore her condition. Mizuki's wound immediately began to heal and soon disappeared completely. When the girl woke up, she began to apologize to Lady Stella for the trouble she had caused. She reported that the bleeding had stopped, but if she moved, it would start again. As she left, Stella said that, however, she did not care what would happen to the inhabitants of the empire. Mizuki was agitated and tried to address the departing girl. But Shaw didn't understand why this girl hated them so much or if there was any reason for it. Shaw hoped that she would definitely be okay. The girl agreed and thanked him for saving her life. The guy claimed that he hadn't even done anything. It's just that if she has any problems, he is always ready to help. Mizuki didn't say anything for a while and then said that he was a kind person. Shaw peeled an apple and reflected on the fact that he was seeing Stella's healing magic for the first time. After all, as soon as she began to cast the spell, in the blink of an eye, the wound healed. The guy was so lost in thought that he didn't notice how he was peeling an apple. He exclaimed because he cut his finger. And then he wondered if his magic could heal too. Shaw put a finger with a small wound in his mouth and thought again about the fact that the human body is a mass of chemical reactions. And can't they use reaction-promoting magic, or the growth-promoting magic that humans use for plants? And monsters rarely attack, but in all worlds it is people who are the most difficult to regenerate, and especially when all sorts of ragamuffins can attack. But at least Shaw would like to learn the simplest attacking and healing magic to be able to defend himself. The guy took his finger out of his mouth and began to bring the knife closer to him, and then ran it over his wound again. And droplets of blood began to drip onto his table, where he had just been diligently peeling apples. And from the outside it may seem that he is insane, and also perhaps he is possessed by the spirit of real science. Because first of all, the magic that promotes growth, and he's going to stimulate skin growth to close the wound. The guy looked at the finger and began to get annoyed, because he realized that it would not last. And the wound became deeper than it was before and there was a lot more blood from it. And then you need to use magic to accelerate reactions. And he thought that the cellular processes that heal the skin are ultimately chemical reactions, but this was again a failure. So not everything is as simple as it seemed. And then he decided to use double activation magic. Both accelerated growth and accelerated reaction work at the same time. The wound began to heal a little. But double activation of magic requires a high level of concentration. And it's like having multiple conversations at the same time, but on the condition that he should still pay attention to the topics of the dialogue. But no matter how hard he tried, blood still flowed out of the wound, but it started to annoy the guy a little. He used magic again and sweat appeared on his face from overexertion. And finally, his wound had completely healed, leaving a small streak and a drop of blood that had flowed out of the just large wound. Shaw loudly exclaimed that he had succeeded. He leaned back in his chair and exhaled loudly because he was so focused that he forgot to breathe. But he did it anyway. Shaw can only use the magic of his mind. And if he continues to figure it all out, then his magical abilities will greatly expand. And if you think about it, the magic of spells looks like a program for activating several spells, and subsequently combining them effectively. but he did not understand at what point it becomes non-regenerative. After all, for example, if you cast magic on meat, it will not turn back into a cow, will not increase, will not fertilize, and will not rot. And magic can only close wounds. She just borrows vitality in advance and speeds up the healing process. Shaw made sure that the flesh does not regenerate because there is no life force that could be borrowed. At the same time, he was looking at a freshly fried steak. And this meant that when the heart stops beating, the blood stops flowing and oxygen stops coming in. Then at the moment when the energy of the cell is exhausted, it can no longer regenerate. And animals can't regenerate quickly, but plants are stubborn. And also if you cut them into small pieces, they will still sprout. And if you take, for example, vegetables, then they sprout from fruits forgotten in the refrigerator. The guy had already eaten a steak and realized something. He thought that some plants were being cloned to preserve quality. Suddenly, he jumped up from his chair and put his hands on the table. He went into his greenhouse and examined his flowers. One flower caught his attention, and it was a vanilla seed orchid. Shaw received seedlings from a master and grew them to get vanilla beans. He heard that orchids are also actively cloned, and if he can magically cause excessive tissue regeneration, then maybe he can clone them too. The guy realized that he would have to try it. The guy decided to take a leaf, then cut it into small pieces. You need to cut the leaf and place it in a sterilized plate with water. Then, you need to activate magic and allow the leaf tissues to multiply. The leaf was lying in the water and was placed so that the distances between them were the same. The cells of an overgrown leaf may soon turn into a white mass. New shoots began to appear from the leaf, and suddenly, a new large leaf appeared from these sprouts. The guy exclaimed joyfully that he had regenerated, and thus he will be able to clone and propagate any valuable plants, and also get as many vanilla beans as he wants. And then, like an evil genius, he began to laugh out loud. He continued to laugh loudly and eventually, he lost consciousness from laughing and collapsed on the spot. And it seemed that he had overdone the activation of magic. After a while, he was sitting in his house again and looking at some detail. Someone addressed him, and it was him. He turned to look at her because he hadn't expected to see her. The girl realized that he was doing something amazing again. Shaw looked at her and said he was just thinking about all sorts of nonsense. And he wondered what had happened and thought that something good had happened. Nim turned to Mr. Shaw again because she wanted him to come to Onion Kapon. The guy couldn't figure out what kind of Kapon he was. The girl said that it was a very fluffy and happy place with a pleasant smell. Shaw and Nim were walking along a small street in their town. There weren't many people around. And the guy decided to turn to her, trying to figure out what she was talking about. It's fluffy and where it smells delicious. Nim said her mom had opened a store. The guy was a little surprised by this and decided to ask again about the store. They came to a house and Nim said that this store was right here, namely Onion Kapon, the Beast Snack Bar. The doorbell rang loudly, showing that new visitors have arrived. There were already a lot of customers in this diner who were happily discussing something and drinking. Nim said that all the visitors are beastmen, and he hoped it wouldn't be a big deal because Shaw wasn't a beast man. The girl turned to Mr. Shaw and said that they were all glad to see him. Nim's mother, whose name was Ninny, immediately said that she was very glad to see him. After all, she had heard so much about him from him that he was a master scientist. And she also said that she was his mother. The guy also introduced himself, saying that his name was Shaw. And so far he is only a student of the master because he did not have a certificate yet. The guy heard that to get an official certificate of a true master, you need to enroll in the Imperial University. He is not very interested in this because what he does will not change, regardless of whether he has it or not. The people in the diner noticed that next to them, Shaw himself appeared, or rather, the true master. The guy heard these exclamations and did not understand their playfulness and such interest in his person. Ninny handed over a plate of food and said it was their specialty meatball soup. The guy immediately scooped up one spoonful and said that it was very tasty and the broth was great. The girl said that the fish from which the broth is made is stewed without taking it out. And spices are used to eliminate the smell, so the taste of meat is enhanced and comes out saturated. Nim said that she told her mom about the soup that the show's master was cooking for them. It became clear to the guy because it meant that they adapted it to the animal taste. She laughed at him and said that it was very tasty. Someone touched the guy's shoulder and turned to Mr. Shaw. A lot of cat girls appeared around the guy. The guy couldn't figure out what was going on. Shaw thought they were the same species as him. One of the girls confirmed, and the other said that she wanted to get closer to the master of the show. The guy began to think that they were not indifferent to scientists, but it seemed to him that this was not the case. The blonde cat girl said that there are rumors in the city that the master of the show is a demon. The guy couldn't figure out how it happened. The girls went on to say that he is the true master who invented spider chocolate. Shaw tried to remember about the spider chocolate. After all, after one case, it began to be successfully produced and secretly sold, ostensibly as a tonic and nutritional supplement during and after illness. But the merchants secretly talked about other effects. For example, one of the merchants said that in fact, he is very effective for something else and all the girls will be yours. And apparently, with such a vulgar advertisement, the product is being sold with rather enthusiastic reviews. The cat girl said that Nim said that the master of the show was kind. And also the master of the show invented the pump. And she uses it every day and now it has become much easier for her. The guy said he was glad to hear that. After all, he used to work for his master, but pumping water from a well was an extremely difficult job. The girl kept saying that, but she still has no idea why the water is leaking out of the pump. Another confirmed it, saying it was weird. And the girl decided to turn to the master of the show, trying to understand that he would do something else amazing. Then Nim broke into the conversation, saying that the master of the show was thinking about creating a wagon that would not need horses. But this is a secret development. The girls couldn't understand how a carriage could travel without a horse, and they suggested that she could ride magic. The guy said no because it's not magic at all, it's just logic. The girl was a little surprised, but the guy immediately confirmed it. He decided to give one example and said that, for example, he made one toy while showing it. The cat girls didn't understand what kind of thing it was, but the show asked to see it. It was a toy car with a bouncing wheel. She accumulates kinetic energy in this heavy bouncing wheel so that when you take your hand away, she keeps going. This machine accumulates energy in the hands, only instead of them the engine is running or something like that. And instead of 4 wheels, this car has 2, so I was wondering how it would go. Then he launched it across the floor. He let go of his hand, saying that it drives like this. His invention rolled across the floor, which immediately attracted the attention of the girls. The cat girls immediately rushed to the typewriter, which greatly surprised the guy. The girls began to destroy the whole room and jump under the tables, because they were trying to catch a car. Shaw reached out to the girls because he wanted them to calm down. Then Ninny came out into the hall because she didn't understand what was going on. The cats sat for a while feeling awkward and said that their bodies acted on their own. Ninny said that's why they don't work. Shaw didn't understand what she was talking about. She said they wouldn't be able to do their job if they were constantly jumping on people. And if they are on guard and a rat jumps out from the side and distracts them, then they will get hit. Shaw remembered something and said that, by the way, Nim did not attack me, but only wagged her tail slightly. Ninny said it was all thanks to her training and she was proud of her. And later they were walking with him between the shops and Shaw thought that maybe he would buy spices too. They approached the shopkeeper and Shaw said that there was such an unusual selection in this store. The merchant turned to the buyer. Because I thought he was an expert and I wanted to make sure of it. He also added that he has rare ores. After that, he handed him a stone and said that even though it looked like just a stone, because that's what Shaw thought. But this is not so because if you hold it so close to the knife. At the same moment, the ore instantly clung to the sword. Shaw saw a natural magnet and became interested because it is so rare that it is not worth a single gold coin. And then he said he was buying it. The merchant was stunned by such a speed of choice and asked to wait because he did not believe that they were buying it. Shaw thought that she was not for sale because he wanted to buy her. The merchant apologized, because I didn't think that anyone would agree to just spend so much money on it. But the guy also added that he would take something else. Among the numerous items, there was dried slime, which the guy pointed at with his finger. On a sign near the slime, it was written that these were delicacies of the hinterland. Nim was surprised by his choice, but the guy was already paying for it. The guys have already been to the workshop of the show. Nim decided to contact the master of the show because she bought a lot of things here. And the guy who was unwrapping the bag looked at her in surprise. He remembered that there was something he would like to cook. And when everything was ready, he offered to make something to eat. The girl happily agreed. There were a lot of parts on the table that looked like gears, and when the guy turned around, Nim was already sleeping peacefully on the bed. So the guy continued to make. And finally, the guy loudly exclaimed that everything was ready. He got a whipping wheel, or rather a hand mixer. It works the same way as a toy car. You need to turn the handle and accumulate energy in the jumping flywheel. And the inertia of the flywheel makes the whisk rotate, even when someone removes their hand. Nim woke up and didn't understand what he was doing. Shaw noticed that she was awake, and he explained that he mixes egg whites to make meringue. It was a new name for the girl, and she did not know what meringue was. The girl was amazed that it became so fluffy in the blink of an eye. It was white, fluffy, and delicious. The guy suggested making it fluffy too. There was cream from milk on the table, separated by centrifugation, and they can also be easily beaten with a hand mixer. The girl turned to the master of the show because she did not understand what about this slime. After all, the mucus is poisonous. The guy said that only the organs are dangerous and the transparent part is not poisonous. And she was just like a jellyfish. And if you put it back in hot water and let it cool, it will harden like agar jelly. If you mix the meringue from the returned slime with whipped cream and syrup, and then flavor with vanilla beans, then the semi-frozen slime will look like natto. They were also going to add it to emphasize the taste. Pour the mixture into a bowl and cool. And today's appetizer mousse of otherworldly slime from natto is ready. Suddenly someone came through the door. It was Stella and Rubia. The healer asked Shaw to serve her something sweet. The guy immediately said that it was almost ready so they could take it. The guy thought this place was some kind of coffee shop. The three girls immediately started tasting the new dish. They didn't understand what it was. It was cool and delicious. And this fluffy and soft texture with a crispy crust was so delicious. Shaw said that this cake is called mousse, and his main ingredient, he hesitated and fell silent. Then he said that the main ingredient is mucus. The girls were shocked by the main secret of this recipe, and they weren't sure if they were talking about the same slime. But unfortunately, the guy has never seen her in person. Stella said she was fed it because it is considered a delicacy, but it wasn't as delicious. Shaw said he was glad they liked her. Rubia was so shocked that she didn't even move. Stella said it was a negative reaction. The girl didn't seem to be breathing, but there was still mousse in her spoon. Stella said that Rubia is a little biased about food, and she has one prejudice about it. Shaw laughed awkwardly and said that was exactly the case. After all, when she sees a rare fish, a rare vegetable, or a rare dish, she asks herself if she can eat it. But Shaw would like them to learn from the Japanese, who eat everything in the world. Stella didn't understand what the smell was because it didn't look like slime. That's why she realized that it was a vanilla bean. The guy said it was an orchid fragrance. The girl remembered that she uses it for incense. Shaw immediately turned to Mrs. Stella, suggesting that she make perfume out of him. She asked in surprise. He said that they should dissolve the perfume in a certain alcohol and put it in a small bottle, and they can enjoy the fragrance whenever they want. Stella immediately hung on his neck trying to kiss him, but then Rubelia woke up and turned to Shaw, which surprised him, and he turned to her, glad that she was alive. She started to deny it but said that if he would make perfume for her, then he would forgive him. The next day came, and there were screams in the workshop directed towards the show. Someone said he was terrible. The guy immediately realized that she was talking about Stella's perfume. As he had heard, she was very pleased with them. The evil queen confirmed it, but immediately Shaw said that he had taken care to make them for her highness as well. The girl straightened a strand of her hair. She hoped he thought they smelled sweet and delicious. He confirmed it by saying that it smells good, calling her your highness. She said he could call her Layla. The guy was embarrassed and said that he couldn't just call her by her first name, because other people are looking at her. She understood this and puffed out her cheeks strongly, either from embarrassment or resentment. Shaw understood how she felt because he also felt detached, especially when people call him master or true master. Well then, when it's just the two of them, he'll call her Layla. He wanted to make sure that it would do. Layla immediately said that it was good and she agreed to it. Shaw remembered something and turned to Layla. She didn't understand what it was. He wanted to know about those chocolates, or rather if they were selling well. The girl said that yes, they are very popular. And in the market, each spider chocolate bar is worth 2 gold coins. And there are also rumors that they are being sold out like hot cakes by large merchants, royals, and nobles. Although they don't talk about it, but some people even disappeared from overeating these chocolates, the guy repeated embarrassedly. He doubted that this was exactly normal, but Leela said he had nothing to worry about. All the old men and pigs that were on the list of people he wanted to destroy had already gone to hell. And maybe that's what he's been trying to achieve all this time. Shaw sheepishly agreed. He did not expect that there would be such an effect. Leela said he was just lovely, and she jumped into his arms and laughed. The guy was thinking that she looks like a nice girl, but she's not afraid to do black things, and her political skills are something unimaginable. Shaw couldn't stop the sweat from flowing. The show has been in another world for several months now, and he learned some things. Civilization in this world has been in its current state for more than 1,000 years. And if we assume that the civilization of this world is at a stage similar to the Edo period, but it is possible that it could have developed to the level of modern Japan in just over 100 years. One of the reasons may be magic. The existence of convenient magic hinders the development of science. And it's amazing that they don't even have matches to light a fire, let alone electricity. Some magic stones that can be infused with magic power ignite upon impact, but magic stones are very expensive. Therefore, it is difficult for ordinary people who do not know how to use magic to light candles. Shaw thought that maybe he could make a simple generator using a natural magnet that he bought the other day from a traveling merchant. But it's not enough to charge the phone, but in his world, you could light a light bulb. The guy started thinking about the light bulb. He needed glass. And there is glass in this world, but it is not suitable for light bulbs because of its low transparency caused by a high content of impurities. He realized that then he needed to do it. Shaw went in search of the right materials. The raw material for glass is quartz, and it can be found in abundance on the banks of rivers. Such glass, which was common in the original world, will be difficult to recreate due to the chemicals used. He thinks some of the old crystal glasses used wood ash. And also lead. Shaw read that the more lead there is in it, the more transparent it is. He thought that the scintillator of a heavy detector, it could be glass. And if it was lead, then he knew it was in the materials department at the castle. In his house, the sounds of effort could be heard. Shaw was sitting at the table again and making his creation. A crucible for melting glass. It was also made by cutting out a larger piece of quartz. And now he needed ashes. He'll need a lot of firewood, melt in a large pot with magically heated water until saturated. We need to take a sedimentary liquid over it, accelerate the reaction with magic and get a white powder. It will be potassium. But what a potash! Although the name didn't matter now, quartz needs to be crushed so that it dissolves more easily. He also replaced the pestle and mortar that he used to grind wheat with metal ones, so they can be automatically crushed using the energies of the water wheel. And in the process, he discovered that heating and cooling can be repeated using magic to break quartz into small pieces. And he was once again convinced that magic can do much more depending on how it is used, and that it can also improve work efficiency. You need to put quartz shell and lead in a crucible, and then put them in the oven. Lead would melt first, but quartz, and it looked like it wouldn't melt at all, because the melting point of the glass should be quite high. And as expected, the furnace for blacksmithing is not powerful enough, and so he strengthened it with magical heating. In order to increase the temperature, it is possible to accelerate the vibrations of molecules, and the quartz begins to melt and glows with an orange light. And after melting, it is poured onto a steel plate, and you need to crush and stretch it with the help of weight gain magic. This is the downside of weight-reducing magic. And then it cools down. Suddenly something confused the guy, and he saw that something was left of the lead. Shaw realized that he hadn't completely melted down. And after several repetitions, he finally gets the point. Only the lead, yellowed by the heat, seemed to have melted well, and therefore it is necessary to heat only the first part. And only those that have turned yellow will be selected. The show did a trial production again. He began to drain the resulting liquid from the glass. The guy carefully began to consider what happened, and finally he started to smile because he finally did it. And now he has a clear glass. There are a few impurities in it, and it's a little uneven, but it's good. And he thought that it could be used to make window glass or even simple dishes. And usually the glass cools and hardens, so it needs to be shaped quickly. But with the help of magic, he will be able to maintain the right temperature. Glass has so many uses that it would be nice to have a special oven, and it's interesting to be able to do something original. He remembered that he needed a light bulb. Next, he is going to try his hand at blowing glass. A combination of iron and bamboo castor oil is used for blowing. He inserted the glass mixture into the oven and began to twist a bamboo stick. And he also started blowing into the center of the tube. He spent several days making glass. The light bulb, which had not yet been completely made, began to melt, and Shaw realized that it was difficult. He was trying to figure out how to blow into it properly. He was thinking that it was a matter of addition and subtraction. The guy started blowing into the tube again and tried to make a light bulb. Meanwhile, the sun had set. He spent several days making glass. Stella and Rubia didn't understand what it was. Stella looked at her reflection, and it seemed strange to her because some elf was looking at her. Rubia turned to the show, not understanding what kind of boards they were. She also noticed that those glasses over there, they were like invisible protection. Shaw came around the corner, seeing that it was Master and Mistress Stella. He began to explain that he had improved the glass a little. He also explained that it was a mirror made of glass, and they see themselves perfectly. Stella was completely shocked, surprised that it was her. Shaw said they were just in time because he just wanted to discuss something with them. The guy held out a rolled-up wire and was about to explain that it was copper wire, but Rubia herself realized what it was. The guy confirmed it and wanted to put a thin film on it. He had already tried wrapping it in paper, but it was too thick. Rubia thought he might use Nikawa. After all, with Nikava, if you bend the line, it peels off. And then Stella suggested that it might be better to use insect wax. Shaw asked again, but Rubia understood that it might be suitable. And then she told Shaw to get ready because they were going into the woods after him. The guy didn't expect them to go now. But the guy knew it because the master is also a real scientist. Rubia said they had to hurry. Insect wax is the same as in his old world. And when the copper wire passed through the molten insect wax, a good film formed on it. And thanks to the master and Mrs. Stella, he had a good reel. And the problem was the thread. He couldn't get hold of tungsten, which was used as a material, and the carbon filament is made by steaming finely planed bamboo. In the first incandescent lamps, or Edison bulbs, as they were also called, bamboo was used for the filament. Stella thought that this was the magic of the vacuum. The guy confirmed it, but the girl wanted to know what he was doing. The guy said it was a lamp. The girls couldn't believe it. He said that this copper wire wrapped around it is called a coil, and when they put a natural magnet in or out of this coil, it lights up. He put a magnet to the coil and the lamp lit up. Everything happened just as he said. Rubio was surprised that she was actually glowing. Stella didn't understand why this was happening. The guy explained that when they put a magnet in a coil, it creates a force similar to electric magic, and the lamp glows. Rubio realized that it wasn't magic. The guy confirmed and said that this is a theory that anyone can use. And if you combine it with a water wheel or a windmill and make a mechanism that will make it happen all the time, and they could make the lamps glow even brighter. Stella said there was a problem. It's awkward if the enveloping darkness suddenly becomes clear as day. Shaw turned, blushing deeply, to Mrs. Stella and asked her not to embarrass him. And while he was trying to get rid of the intrusive girl, he knocked the magnets off the board. Some kind of stone fell like a pentagon fell on a tablet with a lamp. Shaw couldn't believe what had happened. The light bulb was on without a magnet on the coil. He realized that when you hold the magic stone to the spiral, the light bulb glows. And it turns out that there is electromagnetic induction in the magic stone. Shaw thought it was amazing, and that's how he enjoyed the other world. Rubio was amazed at how beautiful the light bulb gave off. Stella wondered if it was really the same force as an electric shock. Shaw had heard that magic stones could infuse and release magical power. But however, he did not think that the magic stone could generate electricity. And the magnet needs to be constantly moved inside the coil. But a magic stone can generate a magnetic field just by being near it. Shaw turned to the master, thinking that magic stones deteriorate from constant use. The girl said she had never heard of such a thing. He was surprised that this was true, because it was completely pollution-free and inexhaustible electrical energy. And if he had discovered something similar in his world, he would have already received the Nobel Prize. Shaw was already at the castle. He was talking to Layla. He was talking about coming up with a new invention. The queen was very pleased to see the guy in his kingdom, and she was very curious about what he had done this time. But the guy was serious and said, turning to the girl, "Your Highness, that it could be sold." And now they were already walking through the basement. Layla did not understand what they would do here. Shaw said he needed her to hold it tight enough. The girl was holding an unknown object in her hands and did not understand what it was. He said they were going to put the magic stone down now. And the girl already had an object in her hands that looked like a lantern that illuminated part of the basement. The girl thought it was cool, but thought it was magic. Shaw started denying it and said it was a trick using logic. A polished copper plate with a tin reflector at the end is inserted into the bamboo tube. A coil is placed inside and connected to a light bulb, and if you put a magic stone in the tube, electricity will appear. The girl shone the light in her face and said that it was great, because now she would not have to suffer to light a candle. Shaw added that it would also come in handy when Layla wants to pee in the middle of the night. The queen immediately said that it would be for sale, and they need to start mass production as soon as possible. The guy said he'd like to do it, but there's something he needs. The girl was looking forward to what he would say. He needs to use crystal glass and magic to create a vacuum to make this luminous part. And to make glass, you need a lot of fuel. He'll figure out how to set up mass production, but you'll have to wait a bit. The girl, with full enthusiasm and joy on her face, said she was leaving it to him. And so Shaw was already walking through the city, and a woman greeted him, calling him Mr. Scientist. He said it was a beautiful day. On the way, he also met a man who realized that he was a master shopping. He confirmed it, and the man said that the newest and best swords were here. The guy looked at his sword and said that he forged it for himself. He made a sword out of scraps that he bought the other day. The man said that he was a great real master, but he couldn't do everything himself. After all, no one but dwarves can forge such swords. The merchant said that he would be grateful if he would visit him from time to time. Shaw laughed and said he would definitely come back. He was also glad of such good weather. The guy was stretching and walking down the street. He passed by several alleys and walked in silence. Something began to confuse him, and he was haunted by a strange feeling. He didn't understand what the hell was going on because he felt someone's presence. Suddenly, he realized that he was being followed, and he asked not to say that the bandits had come to take revenge on him since the last time. He didn't know what to do. Shaw realized that he was being followed, and the same guys who attacked Mizuki are watching. But maybe they won't be able to catch him off guard. After all, there is a classic technique of avoiding persecution. The guy started running as fast as he could and disappeared around the bend. He was waiting for the stalker to show his true face. But But then suddenly a girl tripped over his legs and fell very painfully on her back. Shaw was surprised that it was a child. They stared at each other in silence. And then tears began to fall into the girl's eyes, and she cried very loudly. The guy started asking her not to cry, and to justify that he did not do it because people began to pay attention to him. Shaw began to search his pockets nervously for something and eventually found a piece of candy, which he handed to the girl. He also said he would give her something sweet. The girl said that Maria says you can't take things from strangers. He realized that if such a thing had happened in his world, he would have immediately called the police. Shaw thought she didn't know him because he was a master scientist from the castle. The girl said she knew and he was the master of the show. The guy exhaled with relief, realizing that she really knows him. And if she knows who he is, that means he's not a stranger. And he always gives his friends something sweet. The girl was silent for a while and then her eyes sparkled and she accepted the candy. It was delicious to her, and the guy said that he made this candy from fruits on his own. But she's doing the right thing by trying not to take anything from others. After all, she doesn't want to be kidnapped and sold somewhere. But yes, she knew it because that's what Maria said. Suddenly behind her, someone thought she had something there. The boy said she shouldn't take things from strangers. The girl immediately said that this was the master of the show, a real master, and she knew him, so she could take things from him. Someone in the crowd exclaimed that it was unfair. The boy with the cat ears said that he knew him too while calling him an old man. And he can deceive his sister, but he won't deceive him. But Shaw thought it was cute. Because she works at the castle. Shaw was surprised that the beastman who works in the castle. He realized that he was talking about him and realized that he was her brother. Therefore, Brother Nim asked not to treat him like a cat. He wanted to tell me that she boasted that she had a cute brother. He asked again not to call him cute. After all, he is the man who will become the head of the family. And when he gets big, he'll earn a lot of money and make life easier for mom and sister. Shaw started crying in his shower because he thought it was great. And he will also give him something sweet. The other children immediately said that they help Maria every day. The guy immediately said that it was fine and he would give one for each of them. He wanted to know if they were playing stalking to see how close they could get to people. And it was good that it was him, or for example his master, let alone their elf. He wanted to know if they knew his master. The only thing the children said at the same time was that she was a witch. But I immediately decided to find out about the elf. The children replied all at the same time that she was a destroyer. The guy said it was definitely about her. This elf is dangerous and you never know what she's thinking. One of the boys said that he knows that if a true master catches the show, he will turn it into a magical experiment. The girl said she could even turn into a real monster. Shaw laughed and said that they say that there is no smoke without fire and maybe something like this happened. Anyway, if they keep playing games like this, then their dad and mom will be upset. The children sat on the stonework and looked at each other in disbelief. As it turned out, they have neither a father nor a mother. Shaw was surprised, but he had heard that there was a shelter here. A woman named Maria and about 20 children live there. Shaw said he didn't like their dangerous games, but he would teach them some other way. The children were interested in his proposal. Shaw sat down and started sharpening some piece of wood and then made a helicopter out of it. The guy also started making toys for them, and so he even made stilts. And he also made them a slingshot and rocked them, adjusting to their interests. Shaw was thinking that children are adorable and wherever they come from. And he earns money from the most interesting thing, namely true scholarship. He could make a donation to a shelter for these children. When he came to this world, he was broke. With a salary of 3 gold coins per month and a reward for each invented product, he has about 100 gold coins in his savings. It was already getting dark. And Shaw told the kids that it was time for them to go because it was already late. He will take them to the shelter if they show the way to it. But the children immediately agreed. A 2-story house began to appear in front of them. The children screamed that they were at home and turned to Sister Maria because they were trying to say that they were back. Maria told them without turning around that she was welcome home. The girl was trying to get water but noticed that there was a man with her children. But he greeted Maria and said that he had met her children in the city. The girl suddenly let go of the rope from the well. She threw Shaw into her arms in tears and called him Mr. Zero. The guy was shocked by the girl's actions. After all, he wasn't Zero. The children turned to Sister Maria, saying that this was a show and he was a real sage. The girl silently looked at him and blushing realized that she had confused him with someone else. She apologized, but was immediately reassured by Shaw, saying that everything was fine. He decided to make sure that she was Maria. She confirmed it, still feeling shy. The girl ran up to Maria and said that Mr. Shaw had made them a lot of toys. The girl said that she understood that he took care of the children. But the girl was afraid that she would not be able to repay him in any way, but she asked him to come more often. But now Shaw was already sitting at the communal table and apologizing for eating them up. Maria said that the children were very happy to see him, and she asked everyone to cross their arms together. And suddenly she said itadakimasu. And the children repeated everything at the same time after their mentor. Shaw didn't understand what it was or what they said. Maria explained that itadakimasu is a foreign custom of thanking for food and was taught by Zero. The guy was silent and asked to wait because he thought that maybe Zero was as Japanese as he was. The girl turned to Mr. Shaw. She was very sorry that she had jumped to conclusions. The girl was not sure that he was not Zero. Shaw was confused, thinking that he looked like him in some way. Maria said that this was not the case at all because he was more courageous. Maria said he looks different but they have the same aura. Zero said that the next time they meet he will look different. Shaw didn't understand what kind of person Zero was. The girl said that he saved her life when she disappeared from a labor cough, namely pulmonary tuberculosis. He also healed her eye, which was blind from birth. Shaw didn't know that such a thing was possible, but he still didn't understand who this Zero was. He began to find out about the girl, whether he is a true learned magician because he is very skilled. He asked me to tell him more about him. The girl immediately agreed and said that it happened when she was 12 years old. Maria was born blind and her family shunned her. The girl was sent to work in the Imperial Pavilion of the Night Sky. But she got infected from a guest who came to them. That's how she got sick. She was kicked out of the Night Sky Pavilion and he began to wander the streets. And the girl realized that she was disappearing. And one day she found herself in the dark, sitting by a large tree. And I decided that this would be the place where she would disappear. And just when she was about to take her last breath, a silhouette appeared in front of her and a voice appeared behind it, asking if she wanted to survive. The girl thought that God had come for her and answered as if she had been illuminated by a bright light. She agreed to his proposal. And the next time she woke up her cough had completely disappeared and her eyes began to see. Shaw thought it looked like God himself had come for her. The girl agreed, but there was one thing but. She said that Master Zero said that there is no God in this world. And even if they think there is a God, it is just a being whose knowledge and technology are too different to understand him, or a being who deceives them. The guy said that he agreed with him on this, but he wondered what happened next. Zero advised her to stay with a teacher at this orphanage. Life with Master Zero and other children. They had many happy days. But one day Master Zero told her that he was returning to a distant foreign country. And when she ran after him in tears, Master Zero told her that Maria would take care of their connection and if it existed, then she would see him again. Shaw was surprised, but Maria continued, saying that Zero said it meant a fateful connection or a connection of souls. The guy knew it, and this Zero must have been Japanese. And that is, besides him, someone else came into this world. And believing in the day when she would meet Master Zero again, she decided to cherish their bond when she met him. The girl said that the teacher passed away 2 years ago, and she hoped that this time he would be able to pass on his connection to these children. Shaw was silent but then turned to Maria saying that he was not a man named Zero, but he will do his best. The guy started building a water pipe for them, which supplied water directly to the house. He also gave the children water pistols, but he gave Maria a newly invented flashlight. The girls at the table were in shock. Shaw handed the girl the coins, and she tearfully thanked Mr. Shaw for being so kind to them. She didn't know how to thank him. He hired a carpenter through Rassel's back to repair the job. He was surprised when he gave him 80 gold coins for the job. But for the hero, safety is the most important thing. Suddenly someone crashed into Shaw's body, and because of this, the guy fell. The guy's face was near his chest, and he began to examine it. After all, they were bigger than the masters. The girl said he was bad. The guy tried to explain and give him a minute. But the unknown woman did not understand where he was looking. He looked at the silvery hair, long ears, and dark skin. Shaw wondered if it was really a dark elf. She called him names again. The girl was not satisfied with the fact that he continued to stare at her. At the same moment the show ran, the girl did not understand where he rushed. He was apologizing to her. The girl was annoyed and said she was in a hurry. And so the next day came, and Shaw went into the diner to Ninny while greeting her. Ninny also said she was glad to see him and just in time. Suddenly he was told that someone was looking for him, which surprised the guy very much. The elf he was running away from was standing next to the table. She looked at him indignantly. He said that about yesterday. He didn't finish because the girl interrupted him. She said she was very sorry. The guy was in severe shock. She had come here to see the true master known as the demon, but the more she heard about him, the more she realized that it was him she had chased away. And since he often dines there, she decided to wait for them. Shaw stood in embarrassment and began to apologize for staring at her. And he justified himself by saying that this is a man's nature. but the girl said she was used to it. And so the girl decided to introduce herself, saying that her name was Fei Fei and called him a true master again. And suddenly the girl grabbed the guy. She asked him to because she hoped that he would save her village. The guy didn't understand anything. He had heard that the road in the valley leading to Fei Fei's dark elf village was blocked by huge landslides on the right and left, isolating it. And the village of the dark elves is at the end of the western gorge on the Faline side. They were lucky enough to ride in a wagon with a merchant heading west. Shaw thought dark elves could use magic. The girl said that yes, they could, but they couldn't do anything with such a boulder. The guy didn't believe that he was really that big. And he didn't even know, thinking that maybe it was worth asking a magician who knows how to use great magic. Fei Fei said it would cost too much, and their village is not that rich, but true masters are different, and sometimes they work not only for money but also for an idea. The guy laughed and said that it happens. But he is weak, and especially when a beautiful girl asks him for a favor, and he finally understood what it means to be a man. He said the girl could call him Shaw, and maybe he'll come up with something on the spot. The girl agreed with his proposal, and they continued to ride in the cart with a loud sound. The guy couldn't figure out what it was. The driver of the cart turned to the true master, saying that they were in trouble, because they are surrounded by demons. Several eyes had already appeared in the bushes, ready to attack. Fei Fei said that these were black wolves, realizing that it looked like they had entered their territory. Shaw didn't know what to do, and the girl said they would distract them. The wolves began to come out of the bushes and bare their mouths. The elf turned to the show, saying that they could climb a tree. The guy used weight saving, and he grabbed a tree branch, then he climbed on top of her. The wolves started trying to climb the tree. Shaw said there were too many of them. The girl was upset that she did not have a bow with her because it was being repaired. The guy got nervous, thinking that they were stuck. Fei reminded him about magic. She has fire magic, but she doesn't want to use it. The skins of black wolves are sold for a lot of money, so it is irrational to burn them. Shaw said that's not what he's talking about. After all, lightning magic will burn several skins, but those around them will tip over from the impact. The girl enthusiastically said that it was good. Shaw didn't understand because if lightning struck this tree, it would be a disaster, so he had to come up with something. And finally, he had an idea. Namely, the blessing of the spirits will protect their surroundings. His lightning magic lowers atmospheric pressure, evaporates water, and creates thunderclouds. The girl liked it, and the guy used a weather simulation. There was no water source here, but there should be surprisingly large reserves of moisture in the forest. The sky filled with clouds and lightning began to appear there, and after a while, lightning struck hard in their direction. The guys jumped down and started running away from the tree. All the wolves were already lying motionless, and Fei liked it. The man in the carriage was sitting and waiting for two passengers. The girl turned to the merchant and wanted to know how much he would give her for them. The merchant wanted to make sure that they were sure, because they deserved it. The girl said she had enough money. Shaw said that if you think about it that way, he always wanted to try the black wolf. The girl said that this was it, referring to the show, that boulder blocking the road to her village. He saw this boulder and thought it was impossible, but he didn't understand what it was and how it happened. The boulder was so huge that the people next to it were like bugs. And people were happy that Fei Fei was back. The girl immediately turned to the guys, saying that she had brought a true master. The residents cheered because they hoped they were safe now. He didn't understand how he was going to destroy it now. The village of the Dark Elves. There is a huge cliff on this continent stretching from east to west. The village of the Dark Elves is located at the end of the valley that was formed during the split. But however, a huge stone about 30 meters high, which fell from the cliff, got stuck in the valley, and it prevents the passage of vans and other vehicles. The guy started using magic and there was an explosion, which Shaw tried to hide from, and when the smoke cleared, there was a black hole in the place of his magic. The magic of air compression only scorched the surface. And of course, in the old world it would have been like dynamite exploding. He needs a higher heat index. The air temperature rises when it is compressed, and molecules compressed in a small space move with force and release heat. What would happen, for example, if you compress the air twice, there would be much more heat, and the force of the rupture increased. He would try to activate different types of magic at the same time, and it is difficult but not impossible. But this is the first time he has tried to activate the same magic twice. Double activation of different types of magic. It's like holding a baseball bat in the palm of your hand with both hands. Double activation of the same magic. It's like putting a baseball bat on a baseball bat. The guy would like to try something, and everyone needs to stay away from him because it's dangerous. And now you need to concentrate. The center turns white. The temperature must be over 5,000 degrees if this is it. The guy tried his method on the stone, and the stone began to melt. And he decided to continue to screw deeper. Suddenly, the guy's eyes conveyed a strong surprise because a black liquid flowed out of the stone. The molten stone began to erupt. Shaw was scared because it was close, and all because he should have let his guard down for a second. And the reason he broke out must be because he drilled a straight hole, and thus increasing the pressure. Faye was afraid for his life. She started calling him, and it was good that Shaw was able to open his eyes. The girl wanted to make sure that he was all right. The guy was apologizing for running out of magic. The girl knew that the show would have problems with these boulders, and if they don't tear it down, then they can just clear the way for the wagons. Shaw thought that with his magic he could make a pass. It's a special kind of magic, so they can only use it twice a day, so it may take time. The girl happily said that it was nothing compared to the time they spent on their own skills. Shaw tried to do everything to clear the passage. The stone shattered, but not completely. And if you insert the double compression shell horizontally, then lava and explosion will erupt as soon as it is released, and this is dangerous. Therefore, move it straight, then slightly down and back. And move straight, then down and back a little. Shaw said this thing is very tiring, and the master at Faye's request could go to rest. And now Shaw was already lying on the girl's lap and blushing with embarrassment. He was surprised that they cherished him so much that he was even a little scared. The girls said that this was not the case, they were just trying to serve a useful person. The other elves said, a little resentfully, that they had never been treated so well. Faye leaned out of the tent and told them to shut up, and they still had to clean up the trash. The guy was thinking that these elves were real Amazons. And now 10 days have passed, and every time shooting magic, and so it is every time, but the hole in the boulder has become big. And finally, the tunnel became open, and everyone was rejoicing that the passage to the village was finally open. The elder of the Dark Elves, he didn't even know how to thank him for what he had done. Shaw was amazed at such an elder and tried to figure out how many years he had lived. And I told him out loud not to worry about it. It was enough for him that they were able to check the double activation of magic. And he couldn't imagine what kind of howl Leela would have raised if he'd been doing it in the castle. And I thought that maybe they have a rare mineral that is found only in this part of the world, or something of an unusual color. One of the girls said that she saw black stones. The guy asked again because he thought it was obsidian. The girl didn't think it was obsidian because it was crumbly. Faye replied that she did not understand how such a fragile stone could be useful. Shaw would like to see him and also where he is. He was told that it was on a rock wall at the entrance to the valley. The guy would like to be given a tour on the way back. The girls immediately agreed. Faye said that Shaw was their benefactor to their village, and she will hold it. A limestone hill appeared in front of them, and the girl said that the stones were here. The elf said that this layer is made of black stone, but it is very fragile and decomposes so easily that it is not suitable even for an arrowhead. Shaw realized that it was in order to make sure he started knocking. And having received a small piece of rock, he wanted to make sure that it was what he thought it was. The guy put the rock on a rock and tried to set it on fire. Faye was very surprised that this breed was burning. But the guy was happy that Yugalki exists in this world. And this is the true path of the Industrial Revolution. The elf was surprised that the stones were burning and thought it was magic. The guy replied that the fire was warmed up by magic, but this stone has burning properties. The fuel problem was solved in one fell swoop, and you can even make a steam engine. In any case, he will take the sample to Her Highness and report everything, and we can gather people to investigate. The girl regretted that they had to go so far because it was already dark. The guy said they were staying somewhere today, but she wasn't going to come back at this hour. She said they stopped in a field. Shaw was shocked by this response. Faye replied that they always stay here and asked him not to worry because they are elves. The guy said that's not the point, he just didn't think there would be a place for him. The elf said that of course it was messy, but he could sleep at her place. She would cook for him. Morning came and Shaw was stretching, sitting on the couch. His back hurt. After the morning pull-ups, he turned his attention somewhere to the side. Faye was sleeping peacefully there, and so the guy decided to quietly leave the room. The queen was a little angry with him and wondered where he went, and she realized that he had gone to the village of the Dark Elves, and she's willing to bet that it's very cozy there. And anyway, okay. She hoped there was good news. The guy happily agreed, and he put some coal stones on the table. Layla began to look at the stone in incomprehension and said that it was just a black stone. And now they were in Rassel's workshop. The man thought they were trying to say that this stone could be used as fuel. The queen realized that this was not a magic stone. The guy confirmed and added that it was not a magic stone and there was no mana in it. Shaw asked to watch and started pouring coal into a special device and then arson. Leela thought it was amazing. And Rassel said that this thing has amazing firepower and it will help to cope with the lack of fuel. Shaw said it would be suitable for home fuel. They will steam and furnace the stones to remove impurities and turn them into a fuel called coke. Then they will be able to process more iron than ever before. But there was one problem: this is smoke pollution. After all, when coal is burned, smoke and soot spread over the city and pose a threat to public health. During the Industrial Revolution, the smoke from coal fuel killed many people. The more prosperous the country becomes, the more serious this problem will become. Leela thought he was thinking about what to do about it. The guy replied that naturally he was thinking about it. And when the smoke gets into the water, the soot and toxins dissolve in it. The problem with coal smoke is hydrogen sulfide, which dissolves in water. But the girl was worried about what he would do with the water, which has poison in it. But there is also a way out, for example, to throw insects into this water. Insects are animals that feed on corpses and silt. It is thanks to them that rivers and canals remain clean in a world where there are no sewage systems. But they need to take into account the number of insects, but they think they can handle it. Leela understood everything. Russell thought it was a good idea, and the girl suggested sending a group of researchers to the coal mines. To open the mine, they need to pave roads, cut through forests, and build bridges. We will also have to build a railway to transport coal, and there will be a lot of work. Stella drew the girl's attention, saying that Shaw was back. The guy immediately turned to the master and Stella because he did not understand what had happened. Rubia did not understand where he had been for 10 days without informing her, or rather his master. The guy said he had business and was in the Dark Elf village. The girls were very surprised to hear about the Dark Elves. The guy didn't understand what it was. The girls thought that he went there to look at big breasts, because Dark Elves are known only for this. Shaw said they were wrong because he was helping them solve their problems. The master understood everything, but could not figure out which he preferred more, her breasts or Dark Elves. Shaw said that of course his master's chest, but Rubia was now wondering what he had drawn such conclusions from, and I realized that he had something to compare it with. Fei came into the room and wanted to ask Shaw why he was taking so long. Everyone turned to her with an annoyed face. But the most interesting thing is that an elf and a dark elf met, who were surprised by each other's appearance. Shaw began to feel awkward and said that this was one of the 36 strategies. And the best way to escape is to escape. The girl said his name loudly and resentfully, and he shouted goodbye after them. Running between the shops again, they stopped at a convenient place for them. And Shaw was trying to catch his breath after such a long run. And soon he became convinced that elves and dark elves did not get along with each other. Fei explained that the dark elves have one legend. Elves and dark elves originally had common ancestors and lived in the elven world. But they didn't get along with each other, and their world was destroyed as a result of the conflict. And they all came to this world, provided that they leave their past civilization. Shaw was struck by the depth of this story. Suddenly they crashed into the show, shouting that they had to run. People were running out of the city, shouting that there was danger there, that they had to run away from here. One of the residents stopped and turned to the master of the show while asking him to help them in some way. The man was crying. He was talking about a child who was kidnapped by a demon. Shaw was very surprised by this and looked in the direction from where the people were running. A boy from the orphanage was hanging in the paw of some creature and shouting for help. The demon monster was huge, and there was a whirlwind of leaves around it. The people downstairs were asking for someone to help the child. The boy was being held by a harpy. Fei did not understand why she was here. Shaw realized that his lightning bolts and Fei's magic would be able to reach the child, but he was trying to figure out what to do. But how quickly he asked this question, so quickly he found the answer to it. He remembered the slingshot he made when he was playing with the children at the orphanage. And if he combines his magic with Fei's magic, it will be enough to destroy them. Kinetic energy is proportional to mass, which is proportional to the square of velocity. At the same time, he launched one projectile towards the monster. And the heavier the bullet, the more powerful it is, and on the contrary, if you increase the speed with the help of magic that reduces weight, then the power will increase. And if you turn off the magic right before the bullet hits the target. Shaw was sure she was capable of taking a man's head off. He also realized that he needed to shoot him again. Suddenly an arrow hit the monster right in the heart, which made the guy wonder. Russell held a bow in his hands and called the monster a filthy creature. He also shouted at her to let the boy go. Shaw saw him and thanked him for his help. The bird began to growl and whine in pain. Fei said she was going to attack, and she also wanted to drop masonry on them. The hurricane around the bird began to thicken, and they all had to go into the building. The bird changed its appearance and began firing projectiles towards the townspeople and heroes. Suddenly Stella appeared in front of the guys, who immediately put up a protective barrier. Shaw was glad to see her. He thought the work she had done was amazing. The barrier does not block his view but completely blocks physical attacks. Stella proudly turned around and said that of course she could block even the dragon's fire. Shaw didn't understand how it worked. He saw that photons could pass through him. This means that it does not work against lasers, microwave magic, or the attack of solar panels that collect sunlight. Rubelia suddenly appeared, who thought it was very troublesome. Then she noticed Shaw and told him that she might hurt him, so he should move away. After all, the girl was going to blow up. The guy called out to her and asked her to wait, thinking she was crazy. After all, there are children here, and she can destroy the whole city. Rubia said that several victims would have to be rescheduled. The girl did not know what to do, and her face was full of seriousness. Fei jumped onto the balcony to wrestle, thereby distracting him a little from his task. She asked him to take his bow and just took it for herself. She pulled the bowstring and launched an arrow with all her might straight at the monster. The giant held the boy in his paw and started growling at the whole city again. And his hand let go of the boy, and he rapidly began to fall down. Fei screamed for Shaw to pay attention. He immediately looked up and saw the boy falling. At the same moment, he ran towards the little boy, who was already approaching the ground. And in the end, he decided to use the power of weight loss. Shaw was able to make it and caught him near the ground almost at the last moment. He immediately started jumping on the window, but he was able to get to the door and the girl in a couple of jumps. She was so surprised that she closed her mouth. The guy immediately asked to take care of the child. The girl was scared and with trembling hands took the boy into her arms. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she was a little confused. Shaw told her to get inside faster. He was already screaming because he was scared for all the residents of the city, as well as for the child who almost fell victim to this bird. The girl gathered her thoughts and shook her head seriously, agreeing with him. The bird soared up, which immediately attracted the attention of Shaw and Fei, who again called the guy for help. The attack started from the bird again. A lot of shells were flying at the guy, and so he couldn't hide from all of them and got hit by several, one of which hit him right in the heart. The girl screamed his name in fright. Stones hit the guy and hurt him. The dark elf screams in concern. His phone breaks down and he remembers the past. The show records a video and greets the camera. He introduces himself as a show and says that he is the king of inventions from the channel. The guy shows the camera a round alarm clock and says that today they will start assembling. This round alarm clock works by itself. At the end, he notices that the recording has stopped halfway through. He's reviewing the footage. At the end, the guy asks people to subscribe to the channel and like it. He notices that 12 people have already watched his video, but so far only 3 have subscribed. The guy is happy that their number is growing and new comments are appearing. The main character wonders what to shoot next and dreams of buying a new camera. Suddenly, the guy hears his name being called and opens his eyes, inhaling sharply. The girl next to him says that he was wounded in the chest and she will immediately treat him. Shaw says he's fine. There was something in his inside pocket that saved his life. He asks why he is so reckless. The guy asks where the harpy is. She turns out to be on alert and circling in the sky. The girl says that since they saved the child, she can simply be blown up and is preparing for an attack. Shaw stops her and says they can't do that because they want to minimize the damage to the city. The girl asks what they should do in this case. He replies that he has an idea, but he is not strong enough to cast magic on something of this size, so he needs it. She understands what he's talking about. The main character began to run away while saying that he would lead her somewhere. At his signal, they could start. The guy conjures a sphere and launches it at the harpy. The latter did not expect such actions from him, so she was very surprised. She backs off and Shaw shouts at the master to get started now. The girl resolutely raises her staff and conjures weight gain. The monster falls and the main character pulls out a knife and rushes at her. In flight, he conjures weight gain on himself and stabs the harpy with all his might. Blood began to gush from the enemy's body. He fell to the ground, ceasing to show signs of life. The monster was defeated. The girl asked Shaw if they were done with her, to which the latter replied according to her. People started shouting that the master of the show had defeated the harpy. Everyone is happy about it. Stella says she doesn't often come across such a fresh harpy corpse and its valuable material. She wants to arrange for him to be brought to the castle later. Dad approaches the rescued boy and his mother. They hug and cry with happiness. Suddenly, Layla appears on the carriage. She asks Shaw if he's okay. He is surprised that she is here. The girl says she heard a noise and came running. She notices that he is covered in wounds and asks if he killed the demon. The main character says that he did not do it alone and his friends helped him. The master, Stella, and Fei, the dark elf. He also mentions that the master of the gun shop helped him. He is immensely grateful for his help. His Highness says that in honor of their brave deed, she will give them 2 gold coins. The guy asks if she wants him to give them away. Layla explains that she does not have any cash with her and she will give it back later. The girl also thanks Fei for her help and encourages her to look in on them. In the castle, Fei and another knight compete with swords. The girl wins an unconditional victory by disarming her opponent in battle. Layla looks at her with pride, hands on her hips, and says that her skills are beyond doubt. Her assistant asks her if she is sure, because dark elves are not trustworthy. To which she replied that it was true, and added that although they knew about the existence of a village on their territory, the dark elves are not official citizens of these lands. However, they are ready to hire the best and most capable. To which the girl said that she had heard that they had done a lot to protect the show and ensure that the city was not harmed. She says that Mizuki has just left for the Empire and she can take her place as her escort. The elf does not believe her words. She asks if this means that she will be paid. Layla responds positively, a little shy. The guy is happy for his girlfriend. The girl says that for a dark elf, serving in a castle is a dream. She is very grateful to the main character. Layla on the sidelines says that after a while she will probably regret it. After a while, the guy comes into the room and looks at his broken phone. He knows he's a little out of shape, but he's been a good friend to him. He thinks to himself that he can't make a video about the things and magic he invented in this world. The guy puts it in a box and closes it, thanking him for saving his life. He sits down on the bed and thinks about the demons bothering him. The master told him that demons rarely attack people in this world. He understands their reason for destroying people, because they invade their territory, but the harpy clearly came to the city to kill. Shaw wondered if there was something wrong with her. A few weeks later, the main character is walking down the street and notices a carriage. He chuckled to himself in surprise. Shaw realizes that she is very luxurious and wonders why she comes through the back gate. Because high-ranking people enter through the main one. Suddenly, Nim calls out to him from behind. He wishes the girl a good morning. She asks where he was in such a wound. He says that he went to the forest to collect some ingredients. The main character asks her if she wants to have breakfast. The girl informs him that her highness is waiting for him in her office because they have a guest. The guy makes the assumption that this is the guest who was in that cart. Already in the office, Leela asks Rubia about how things are going. The girl says she can't help her in any way. The guy comes into the office and asks if she wanted to see him. Layla is glad that he has finally arrived. The girl presents the show to Princess Mi Luna. He bows and says that he is glad to meet you. The girl with the scar on her face introduces herself as Mi Luna Faltas, the first princess of Faltas. She asks to be called Maruna. The princess says that in Faltas he has a reputation as a prominent master who strives for the truth, and only he can help her. The guy notices the burn and realizes that she is badly burned. The main character asks what kind of wound it is. The girl explains to him that, as usual, she was in the forest and collecting a plant as a hobby when she was attacked by a demon. Lately, there have been rumors that demons sometimes attack people, but she never thought that she would be attacked herself. Layla remembers that the harpies appeared the other day. She is concerned that demons are increasingly appearing in the vicinity of Farlane, and she has even heard rumors that flying dragons have been seen here. The guy is surprised by the dragons. The girl turns to Shaw and asks if he can do something about Miluna's wounds. He says that if his master could not, then he is powerless. The main character remembers that in his world burns can be treated by skin grafting, or by recreating skin from its fragments. Suddenly the guy remembers the orchid clone, which he created twice by activating magic. The show wonders if the same can be applied to the skin. The girl asks if he has a better idea. The main character says that he has an idea, but it is theoretical and he does not know if it can be put into practice and what side effects it may have. The guy says that it can be regenerated gradually, so it will take time. The princess agrees to everything and says that there is nothing good about the ugly daughter of the royal family. She says that if she doesn't get her old face back, she won't even be able to return to her country. The guy doesn't understand what she's talking about. Maruna, putting her hand to her chest, says that she has nothing to lose and asks him to do it. The guy doesn't understand how she can say that she's worthless because of the loss of her appearance. He wonders why. The girl says that a person's values depend not only on his appearance, it's true. However, Maruna says that she is the princess of the small kingdom of Faltas, and for the sake of the prosperity of her family and country, she must marry into the right family at the right time, and therefore she must always be beautiful. This is her royal mission. The guy wonders what, in this case, her fate is to get married for the sake of her country. The girl responds positively and says that she was born a rose, not a wild flower. The other girls are silently watching this. The main character says he understands her. He goes on to say that this method has never been tested on humans, and he does not know what side effects or consequences there may be. The show warns the girl that she must be ready for this. She agrees. After a while, the princess lies on the operating table. The main character is standing next to her, dressed in a medical suit. He has a mask on his face. He picks up a scalpel and calms himself down inside. The main character thinks that the master will support him if something goes wrong and he should try to do it. The guy says that he will start from the shoulder area and begin disinfection with alcohol. Maruna agrees. Then he performs anesthesia. With the help of forceps, he dips the object he needs into the liquid. He says it's a drug that temporarily anesthetizes the affected area so she doesn't feel pain. He uses spider venom for anesthesia. When he was making chocolate, he also pulled out the poison, and it works quite well as a local anesthetic. The guy warns her that soon she will become so cold that she will not even be able to feel him. Maruna says she is really getting cold. Rubai is surprised that he even came up with such a thing. He says he can't use paralysis magic. Thus, even an ordinary doctor who does not know how to use magic can use it. He asks the patient if she feels ill and if she feels anything. She answers in the negative. The main character makes an incision and is going to roll up the cut dermis. At the same time, he uses spells to accelerate growth and reaction. The growth acceleration spell stimulates the growth of normal dermis. The simultaneous application of growth acceleration magic stimulates the proliferation of cells involved in growth. The skin cells grow many times faster than usual, and the new skin slowly grows and tightens the wound. In half an hour, it can regenerate about 3 cm of area. With his magic, he can regenerate 5 to 6 centimeters a day. He says she's all that today. The guy shows the girl a mirror and says that it only partially healed early, but it heals well. The girl says she has never seen such a beautiful mirror and smiles. The main character apologizes to her and says that he would like her to look at what he did and not at the mirror. The princess looks at the regeneration and says it's a wonderful recovery. After a while, Layla snacks on pancakes with Mont Blanc-style cream with boiled beans. The main character is surprised that they are cousins. She explains to him that her late mother and Queen Faltas are sisters. The girl also says that they only managed to see each other once a year, but they often played at the royal villa of the Fardases on the lake. Maruna says she misses those days. The guy looks at them in disbelief. The princess says that this place is like another world anyway. She notices delicious pastries that she has never seen before, a bright room with beautiful crystal-like glass. She tells Layla that yes, she must be resting since she has such a good master. She's making the assumption that she's jealous. The girl turns to Shaw and says that she will pay him twice or even 3 times more if he agrees to work for her. Layla gets angry and asks her how she can say such a thing in front of her alive. The main character laughs and apologizes because he has to reject her offer because he swore to Her Highness that he would develop this country. He can't leave. The girl is surprised by the oath of a true master and compares him to a knight. She had never seen anyone like him, because most true masters go to more worthy employers. He says it's not a matter of money. On the other hand, he has money for research, but for now he has enough for food. That's the main thing. Layla tells the girl that the show gives the earned money to an orphanage. Maruna is surprised by this. The main character says that this is all for the benefit of Farlane, because children are a national treasure. The girl thinks he's a strange man, but the princess says it makes sense. Maruna notes that it is unfair that a child with talent is deprived of the opportunity to realize himself only because of who he was born. She believes that investing in children who will one day become the backbone of their country will make them better in the future. The main character wonders if it is possible that the princess has the gift of a true master. Layla is surprised that he didn't understand it right away. The girl says that she studied with a master. Shaw wants to answer her, but suddenly Stella comes into the room and says that she feels something sweet. Maruna greets her and says it's been a long time. She is surprised by the girl. Stella is amazed by her appearance and asks what kind of scar it is and also calls it vile. Thus, the main character realizes that Stella was the master of the princess. They treated her for 3 days and the process was good. But on the 4th day, Princess Miluna started having a high fever. The medicine consisted in regenerating the skin, by forcibly accelerating the body's natural healing powers. This requires a commensurate expenditure of energy, and the main character realizes that she needs rest. Suddenly, in the middle of the night, the show is called. Layla asks him to come over and tell them the story again. The main character asks where he left off. The girl reminds him that he stopped at the place where the heroes will mourn their unfulfilled love. The main character asks the girl how she feels. She replies that she feels much better today. The guy realizes that slowly but surely, the scars from Princess Miluna's burns are healing. The main character stands and calmly waters the plant standing right in front of him. Suddenly, a princess comes up to him and says that this is a rare plant. She asks if she can see him. The guy does not refuse her. Shaw says the treatment is coming to an end. Maruna agrees with him and says she doesn't know how to thank him. To this, the main character says that the main thing is that she is fine. The girl blushes and clings to him. He drops the watering can and tells her that she shouldn't do it. She apologizes to him and says that she has never experienced such feelings. The main character reminds her that when she heals her face, she will begin to perform her duties. The girl agrees with him, but not completely. Shaw stews and says that she most likely mistook the excitement in her heart caused by the healing of the burn scars for feelings for him. The girl does not agree with him and says that he is a wonderful person. Princess Maruna says she is not suitable for him, that's right. She asks if their fates would have been different if he had met her before he met Layla. He replied in the negative and said that he was indebted not only to Her Highness, but also to the master, Stella, and everyone who works in the castle. The girl asks him again, not understanding what he is talking about. The main character says that he meant Miss Rubia. He explains to her that when he was in the forest when he arrived here, she was the one who saved him and made him a real master. He also mentions that if it wasn't for that, he would never have met her. The girl is upset. She laughs sadly and says that she would like to be born a wild flower, not a rose. The princess turned to leave. Finally, she said that her father and mother would come for her next week. The main character is surprised that His Majesty the King and Queen will come here personally. She says she texted them that her burn scars are healing well. The King and Queen would like to pay a visit to Her Highness and him. The main character smiles and says that in this case he should show them her beautiful face. The girl turns to him and, smiling with tears in her eyes, agrees. Next week, Maruna's face is already intact. King Faltas and Queen Eliza exclaim in surprise. The man calls it a miracle, but the woman says she can't believe it. The princess herself tells them that it was Shaw who healed her face. The king shakes his hand and tells him that he has performed a real miracle. The guy is surprised and confused. He says that this is not a miracle, but a healing based entirely on reason and magic, as well as the result of the efforts of the princess, who withstood the harsh treatment. The king wants to thank him for saving his princess from irreparable harm. The main character says that the masters themselves bow before the king. The man answers in the negative. He thanks him not as the king of the kingdom, but as the father of his beloved daughter. Faltas bows his head in front of him and thanks him. After a while, the main character shows the queen and the princess his workshop. He says they can look around as they please until His Majesty's meeting with the queen is over. A woman turns to Shaw and asks if it could be that the magic that healed her daughter is working on others. She points at her face and says that she has recently developed wrinkles in the corner of her eyes. The main character says that these are wrinkles and suggests that since he undertook to remove the sagging under her chin, the woman is surprised that he can do this. He tells her that compared to treating the princess's burn scars, it's not that difficult. Shaw asks her if she wants to try it. The woman is happy and responds positively. King Faltas and Layla end the meeting. The man says that they spent a short but fruitful time together. The girl makes the assumption that they are busy since they have already decided to leave. Faltas turns to his wife and says it's time for them to get ready to leave. Suddenly, he notices his wife's appearance. He asks Eliza what happened to her face. The woman laughs and is glad that he noticed. She says she also decided to use the magic of a local craftsman. The man is very surprised and asks if this is the elixir of youth. The main character explains to him that she is still at the same age. He just stretched the wrinkles on her face a little and after a while they will return to normal. He doesn't understand how this could happen. The king says his magic is sure to be popular with women. Sometime later, rumors of a magical cure quickly spread among the royals and nobles of the continent. When the princess regained her beautiful skin and the queen became young again, applications from the ladies-in-waiting of the royal families poured in. The main character performs an operation on a woman and says that he will now freeze the skin. Day after day, wrinkles and sagging skin disappear, but this does not suit the show. He almost cries, thinking that he is not a cosmetic surgeon. Layla and Shaw are having tea. The girl notices that he doesn't look well. He explains to her that he is running out and his body will not stand up if he continues to receive requests day after day. Layla is happy that he is making money. However, she remembers that she heard that Maruna was showered with offers as soon as her face was fixed. The girl asks if she was ugly before. The guy asks her opinion about whether Princess Maruna will be able to find a suitable match for herself. The queen says that there are many people in the world who are ready to jump at the opportunity to look good. There is one person in Farlane who might suit Maruna in her opinion. This is Viscount Furres. People trust him and he's not a bad person. However, the girl believes that he will not make a family man. Moreover, the title is too weak, so she cannot recommend it. The main character says that the title can be anything and gives an example. He offers to entrust him with the production of crystal glass, declare that the Viscount has achieved mass production of crystal glass, and elevate it to a title. He'll be a duke in no time. The girl calls it a lie. Well, the guy says it's only at first glance. He believes that Princess Maruna has learned from a real master and she is the person who can be trusted to make glass. The queen says that Princess Maruna was in love with him and calls Shaw a very bad person. The main character does not understand what she is talking about. Her Highness then sent a letter to Faltas in which she introduced the Viscount. She said that large-scale industrial development was underway on the Viscount's lands and that a promising future awaited them. Princess Maruna immediately fell in love with him and they are happily engaged. The main character briefly went to the Viscount's estate to teach them the recipe for making glass. If he runs a glass factory, then all other projects will fail. However, if he wanted to protect the people of Farlane, he had to do it. It has been a long time since the main character visited his mentor's house in the forest. Rubia worriedly says that he walked all this way and asks what he is up to. The guy says he remembered about the harpy the other day. He thought about it when he heard that she was attacked by a demon. Shaw says that in case of unforeseen circumstances, Farlane should be able to defend himself rather than rely on magic. That's why he wants to make a fire potion, in other words, it's gunpowder. The girl exclaims in surprise. She asks if he means it as a weapon. The show responds positively. As a true master, he is sure that she can imagine what would happen if the weapon became powerful enough. Rubia thinks about it at first, but then agrees, but makes it clear to him that she is not going to interfere with what he is doing. The girl says that if Shaw tries to use him for evil, then she will do everything in her power as his master to stop him. The guy smiles and says that he is glad that she is his master. He says that in that case he can get to work. Since it is dangerous, the main character asks her to be there. He immediately starts making gunpowder. The main character is going to make gunpowder from saltpeter. The raw materials for this are humus from the forest and manure from the owner's house. In other words, it's his master's waste and a bit of his. He combines manure with humus and mixes it with the help of magic that accelerates fermentation. It starts to smell bad. The main character covers his nose from the smell and manages to ask himself why he mixes it all up if he is in another world. Shaw reassures himself that this is for the good of the country. It smells bad, but the smell has been familiar to him since childhood. His parents live in a rural area where sewage collectors drive around the district every now and then. On the way, he throws crushed pills at him. Suddenly, Rubia arrives. The girl holds her nose and asks what the smell is. The main character says that he advised her to stay at home and that it is dangerous and she should hold her nose. The girl screams that she does not understand what he is talking about. She believes that the master cannot help but see the moment when the disciple masters the truth. The girl comes closer but immediately turns away from the strong smell. Shaw says he warned her. The guy suggests she watch but stay away. Fermentation has increased significantly and there should be saltpeter in this liquid object. He's going to take her out of here. Nitra is soluble in water. He must put this substance in a cauldron of water and heat it with magic. Perhaps it will be unpleasant for someone. After all the products are processed, you need to let the water in the boiler evaporate. Now the walls of the pot are covered with a thick layer of white needle-like crystals. These are the nitra crystals. There are quite a lot of impurities in the mixture, but they will be able to increase the frequency by repeated recrystallization. Rubia asks if it's a fire potion. Shaw responds negatively and says it's only one of the ingredients. He will return to the workshop tomorrow and take care of the rest. He wants to make black powder, but besides gunpowder, he needs charcoal and sulfur. The girl says something that he made it out of something that stinks so much is amazing. The main character explains to her that it is made from waste. The girl asks if it's from her waste. The guy gets lost and doesn't know what to say to her. Rubia is very angry at him, exclaiming loudly. In the workshop, Stella laughs at the fact that Shaw made a weapon out of Rubia's excrement. The one next to her is angry at her and blushes. The girl says that in this case, it's not surprising that he smells so bad. The main character says that he took a bath and his clothes also seem to be clean. He wonders if his nose is stupid. The steel casts a cleansing spell on him. The guy is surprised that she can deodorize and thinks it's convenient. She asks what he is going to do with these crystals. The guy explains to her that he will add saltpeter and charcoal to this saltpeter in mixing proportions of 7:2 and to 1. He said to grind them as small as possible and mix evenly. Stella asks if it's really a weapon. The show encourages you to try. It takes a small amount and then pumps out the air to prevent ignition. The main character sets it on fire with a candle and it lights up. Stella asks what's the big deal. Shaw says it needs to be compressed after that. The girl is surprised and asks again. He kneads it with water and wraps it in a cloth. Shaw says you can put a load on it, but they use magic to squeeze it as fast as possible. He explains that compression makes the reaction more efficient and powerful. When it dries and becomes crumbly, they use magic to crush it into granules. He's going to set it on fire again. He takes a candle and ignites the powder lying on the cloth. The fire burns powerfully. Rubia says it's a different matter. Stella says it's amazing, now the black powder is ready. All he had to do was prepare what he had asked the dwarf master for, and he would present it to Her Highness. After a while, the queen asks him if he has invented anything else. The guy responds positively and asks her to look at it. He pulls out a simple weapon with a flintlock. The barrel and bullets were cast by their dwarf craftsmen. The girl asks what it is. The guy explains to her that this tube has a charge of gunpowder at the end. He inserts a lead bullet from above. Then he shoots. He fires a shot towards the dummy and the bullet pierces the armor. All three girls are surprised. He explains that the lead ball flew out and made a hole in the armor. If there is a human in the armor, it will pass through the flesh and may even hit hard-skinned demons. Layla asks if it's magic. Shaw answers in the negative and says that this is not magic but science. The girl asks if even untrained people can use it to shoot from such a thing. She asks if even peasants and girls can defeat monsters. The guy responds positively. The queen, putting her hand to her chin, thoughtfully says that this truth is frightening. The main character suddenly laughs. He asks what they are afraid of because she will find a use for him. The girls are at a loss. The queen tells him not to prank her. The show obeys. The main character says that weapons and gunpowder will not be sold because they need them to protect the country in case of need. Gunpowder can be useful to people in life. It can break rocks and increase the speed of coal mining in this way. Stella says that if this thing spreads across the continent, it will be like opening the gates to hell. Nobel invented dynamite for civil engineering, but it was quickly used for war. The history of the former world proves that it cannot be used only for peaceful purposes, and the main character does not want this world to make the same mistake. Layla agrees that if it falls into the hands of someone powerful, then war will come. But from the Harpy attack and the Miluna incident, she realizes that demons are becoming more active. And in general, the hour is uneven. They will start attacking citizens and villagers. The girl understands that their duty as a royal family is to be ready to protect their people in difficult times. She leaves the manufacture of weapons to the main character. He says he understood her. Layla also believes that this information should be absolutely confidential as a state secret. He decided to make gunpowder himself in his spare time. But producing it with other people is a bad idea, as this will lead to information leaks. Since Her Highness had given him a top-secret budget, he decided to buy manure for livestock as raw materials. In his opinion, it is much more efficient when it comes to production. Their stocks are constantly growing, but they must be careful with black powder because it can ignite from friction or static electricity. They keep it wet and spread it all over the castle, and when the time comes, they just dry it with magic. Then he decided to make another weapon. After a while, they test anti-aircraft weapons at the training ground. After the volley, an explosion occurs. Kaka and Tika exclaim that it's cool. They are the twin brothers of Chick. The guys are former hunters with good eyesight. Kaka says it's because there was a good sight. Tika replies that he would have done the same. They can determine which animal is at a distance of 1,000 kilometers, and therefore they stood on the defensive. The main character jokingly notices that they are very close. Layla is happy that he flew far and asks how far he can fly. Kaka assumes that he has just flown 400 stops. He also says that if you aim a little higher, he will fly another 32 stops. They have the exact parabola in their head that the formula requires. Shaw thinks to himself that they have great talent. The queen says that she did not know that all this is possible without magic. They ask if they can use the same power as magic with this tube and magic dust. The main character responds positively and says that they shouldn't tell anyone about it. He also says that they should not take the powder with them. The guys agree. Layla turns to the Chick brothers and says that they are the most suitable for this job, and from today they will work with the show as gunners. The girl also says that their salary will be increased in proportion to their work. The brothers thank her. Layla orders the main character to continue developing defensive weapons. The girl also says that Rassel was upset to learn that the main character had been so busy lately that he had not visited him. Shaw is embarrassed and says it was awkward. She says that excavations are underway in the coal mines, and in the workshop of artisans, the construction of roads and bridges, which he commissioned them to build. She also says that it's not for years that a holiday day will be held where their inventions will be demonstrated, and they ask him why he doesn't visit them soon. The guy agrees with her and says that he will definitely do it. The main character smiles and says that it's time to prepare for the main event of the entire festival. The main character exclaims in surprise in front of a large column, saying that it is huge. He came to look at the blast furnace in the castle workshop because it was already finished. The show calls her amazing. The main character showed them most of the mechanisms. and Mr. Rassel and the dwarves used their know-how to complete this blast furnace. The man says that the most wonderful thing is that he taught them how to make coke charcoal. Until now, magic was required to raise the temperature, but with this furnace, they would be able to ship iron without it. However, the blast furnace needs to be ventilated, and this, apparently, is still done with the help of magic. Shaw recalls that in the original world steam engines were used to pump air. He wants to get on with it as soon as possible. But to build an external heat engine or an internal combustion engine requires a lot of development. Even if they knew the principles, they would have to go a long way before they could put it into practice. Shaw is confident that Rassel and his team will be able to build such an engine if they teach them the principles. But even then, they will still need at least a working model. Suddenly, the person next to him turns to Shaw and thanks him for his hard work. The guy says they're all working hard. Rassel agrees with this. He says that they have laid a trolleybus track inside the castle, and it is very convenient for transporting coal and cargo. The man says that trolleybuses will be very active in coal mines. The guy is glad that everything is going well. The man agrees that this is the dawn of a new era. Roads and bridges were built to get to the mines, and coal was brought in 2 or 3 wagons at a time. It takes more and more energy. The city is getting busier and busier. More and more people seem to be learning about the development of their city. The main character is walking down the street and notices something. He asks himself what kind of magnificent building it is, and a young man meets him and asks if he is the master. The man is glad that they were lucky to meet the master. He pushes the main character inside and says that he has a wonderful product. The show does not have time to understand anything and they ask what kind of store they have. He notices the scary look of the man next to him and makes an assumption to himself that this is a criminal place. The guy is scared. The man asks which servants he prefers. The main character is surprised that there are servants here. However, he remembers the level of civilization in this world and realizes that it is not surprising that there are servants here. The main character did not notice right away because they are not in the castle. Her Highness hires as many servants as she needs for the appropriate price. The man points to one of the servants and tells him that if he is looking for a warrior to guard, then he will suit him. He says that he is a former warrior, and the price for him is only 50 gold coins, and it is a good deal. The main character says that he does not buy servants, and this is unacceptable for him. He is surprised because he does not like servants. The man says that there are children of ruined merchants and the same provincial nobles here. They accept those who have nowhere else to go. Privately, the show compares this to the global safety net. The man says that eventually someone will buy them, but it would be lucky for the servant if he bought it. The show responds negatively and thanks. The main character is about to leave, but another man with a scary look blocks his way. The guy says there are smart people who could help them. He also says that the girls upstairs can read, write, and count and offers to take a look at them. Shaw realizes that they won't let him out. The main character agrees and says he will just watch. He says he'll be downstairs so he can take his time and look around. The main character sees a lot of beautiful girls upstairs. He thinks to himself that upstairs is like a place only for very important people, like in a luxury car salon. Suddenly, Shaw notices a very beautiful girl. Privately, he wonders if she is a fallen aristocrat or something like that. He doesn't understand what kind of strange feeling he has, as if she is too well dressed or something. Suddenly, the girl gets up from her chair and walks towards him. She walks up to the bars and bows. The girl thanks him for coming to pick her up and calls him Mr. Zero. Shaw is surprised to hear this and remembers what Maria said about Zero. The guy makes the assumption that she is also related to Zero. He says that he is not Zero, but the master of the show and asks her if she knows him. She responds positively and says that Zero is her master. He asks if she knows Maria from the orphanage and if she participated in the treatment of her illness. The girl responds positively. She says she purified streptomycin and injected it into Maria. The main character is surprised by this and thinks that it is an antibiotic used to treat tuberculosis in his world. He does not understand how she knows that there is an antibiotic that is not here. Shaw goes down the stairs and asks the man to come up. Already upstairs, he asks if he likes anyone. The main character points at the girl with his finger and says that he liked her. The man says that, as befits a real master, he has a good eye and is an exceptionally smart girl. She can read, write, and count perfectly. The guy asks how much it will cost, and the man tells him that he will sell it for 250 gold coins. Shaw is surprised by this price and does not understand where it comes from. The man explains to him that this girl is not only smart, but also very skilled. When they captured her, they lost a lot of people. The main character is surprised and wonders to himself if this is true. He says he only has 100 in his pocket. One man looks at him menacingly, and the other assumes that he is joking. The guy has an idea. He hands them a fruit and asks if it will fit. The bald man says it's a lil merch fruit. The second one doesn't understand what he's talking about. Even a rotten fruit like this costs 100 gold and this one is raspberry. Anyone will pay 3 or 400 gold for it. The man smiles and says that he will have to settle for berries to make up for the lack of gold. Shaw thinks about the cost of lil merch berries and considers it a big loss but calms himself down. The girl is released from the cage. Her name is Nanami. She answers his questions but she doesn't say much herself. He wonders if Maria knows anything about it. After a while, Maria is surprised that he brought her. The main character asks her if she knows them. She responds positively and says that this is the doll that Mr. Zero brought. Shaw doesn't understand what she means by talking about the doll. The girl says that at first she thought it was one of his henchmen, but Zero-sama told her that it was an automaton. The main character is surprised and asks if she means a robot or something like that. Nanami says that in a broad sense, a robot is the closest thing to her. The show assumes that she has no will of her own and is programmed. The girl says he's right, Shaw exclaims in surprise. The main character says that she is soft and has a body temperature. He believes that she is completely indistinguishable from a human and notices her hair, wet lips, even teeth and saliva. The guy got very close to the girl to look into her mouth. Maria stands next to him in disbelief. The show apologizes. He asked Nanami about Zero's location and who Zero was since he was capable of creating such a thing. The girl replies that she has a completely biological body, and she also said that they were separated as a result of an accident, and she does not know where he went. The main character says that he hoped that they would be able to find out where he is now, and she thinks that everything will be fine since he is here, and asks him to come to them again. After a while, the main character asks Nanami a question. He wants to know the square root of 2. The girl asks how many digits he needs. He tells her that he needs 10 decimal places. The girl says that the number he needs is 1.414213563. After that, Shaw asks her for the cubic root of 2. She says the answer is 1.2599210.498. The main character is surprised by such a quick response. He tried different calculations, but regardless of the number of digits, the answer is given instantly. The show calls it a human computer. And there's nothing to say about her skill. He designs things in his head and she works with the machine, so he made a gear at random. Rotary, cycloid, and other gears, the design of which requires complex calculations. He can now quickly create a drawing in his head and accurately process it. She is a real bio-CNC machine. He thought he had been deceived, but in his world the machine would cost millions of dollars. The main character remembers the man who tells him that they hope to see him again. Her knowledge is absolutely priceless. He has the most powerful assistant Zero has ever left. The main character feels that he can build anything. After a while, the main character and Layla drive a car. The girl exclaims loudly and says that it's great. She asks Shaw if this is his carriage without a horse. The guy responds positively. He suggests calling it a car because it drives automatically. The girl likes this name. The main character says that this is a car, so she does not get tired like a horse and can drive all day as long as she has water and fuel. Layla says that at first, when he brought a new girl, she didn't know what to think, but now she sees that this is a very important invention. The guy doesn't understand which girl she's talking to. When the masters found out about the existence of Nanami, they almost nailed him, but he was able to implement the craft with a high degree of accuracy. Nanami's appearance was crowned with success, and using all his potential he created a steam engine. This engine, as the name suggests, is powered by steam. Coal is burned to boil water. Steam passes through the tubes and is alternately directed to the left and right of the pistons. As a result, a reciprocating motion is formed. This reciprocating motion is converted into circulation by means of a crank, a bouncing wheel. The rotation is then transferred to the wheels to drive them. Watt's engine is the most famous steam engine in his world. It's a pretty fraudulent invention because it omits a lot of details, but they still managed to do something like this. Nanami's brain designs it, models it, puts it on the machine, and he just has to assemble it. That's the kind of work cycle they get. Shaw cooked the cauldron himself, processed all the small tubes himself, and so on. He has put a lot of his personal flair into it, but it is not very fast. Now it develops a speed of only 30-40 kilometers per hour. The girl asks him if he can go faster. The queen turns to the main character and asks if they could go faster, as she thinks it would be more fun to go faster and faster. The main character thinks to himself that Her Highness is obsessed with speed and says that he could go faster if he had more gears. The guy explains to her that the roads are uneven and it's just dangerous to go faster. However, if they build a railway, they will be able to drive more carefully and faster. Leela doesn't understand what he's talking about. Shaw says this is what looks like the railroad they built inside the castle. And if it connects the country with coal mines, transport will become much more efficient. He also says that if they build more railways between cities, the traffic of people and goods will increase. Railways played a big role in the industrial revolution of his world and wants this world to follow in their footsteps. Shaw says it will take a lot of time and money, because it's not just about their country, but about the development of the whole world. After a while, Miluna exclaims in surprise, admiring. She says it's fun and that it's not fair. Layla tells her that the girls should try to ride with the show because it's fun. She asks if she can. In that case, the girl wants to take a ride. She gets behind the wheel. The main character is surprised that Princess Miluna will drive. It's not that hard to drive. It's like a single-speed automatic transmission without clutch and gearshift. Miluna asks him if he will sell her this car. The girl offers him 500 gold coins as payment. The main character is surprised that this is a lot and realizes that in his world it is 100 million yen. He asks if it's a little bit. The princess explains to him that this is not much because she wants to make and sell the same thing based on this. The girl calls it a natural investment. The main character understands that this is very clever. He feels a strong business spirit. Some details are difficult to reproduce, but he is sure that she is a very smart girl. It may take some time, but eventually they will reach mass production. He realizes that he will have to leave her car later for sure. The mechanism of the steam engine made on the machine was shown to the craftsman. In the workshop, the craftsman also began to make a steam engine. The man calls it a clever design. At first, they began to develop a machine with a steam engine to pull coal trolleys. This would require 5 to 10 years of serious research. However, it took only 1.5 months to create a real moving car. The day of the festival has finally arrived. The day Farlane was supposed to present his invention. At the festival itself, the queen addresses the citizens and thanks them for being here. The girl says that before they open the festival, the person next to her should say a few words. All the people are watching the show and he's at a loss. The main character wishes all present, ladies and gentlemen, a good evening. He presents himself as a show. The guy says that he is a disciple of the master of Rubia. He says that now they will go to the exhibition halls inside and outside the castle, and they will be able to personally see the various developments that their country has developed in its own unique way. The main character is the one who discovered them. It was they who, through trial and error, brought them to life like this. He remembers all his artisan friends and says that the artisans of their country and the material department that supports them. The guy also says that, as Her Highness Princess Layla said, his desire for the people is also supported by many people. He raises his hand up and asks to be loved and favored. Suddenly there is a volley of fireworks and a bunch of beautiful explosions over the castle. All people are very surprised. Although he had to hurry, he managed to make the right colored fireworks. Orange is a fiery reaction of sodium salts, white is tin, green is copper. The pipe is an ordinary bamboo reed. It reminded the main character of the toy mortars that he made in the master's house. It was there that his otherworldly inventions began. In the crowd, a man calls the fireworks a wonderful thing. Rubia watches the beautiful picture with fascination. Suddenly, Shaw comes up to her and calls her, calling her a master. The girl is surprised by him. The guy suggests that she go outside the city for a minute. People walk around the market. The guy hands the girl a spit with food and asks her to hold it. Rubia thanks him. The girl asks if he is sure that he should walk like this because today he seems to be a star. The main character calms her down and says that everything is fine. The rest is business meetings, and he is confident that Her Highness will take care of it. Rubia smiles and says that her life has completely changed since he arrived. The girl remembers that she really wanted to live a quiet life in the forest. The guy is embarrassed and says that he is sorry that it happened. Rubia comforts him with a smile on her face and says that everything is fine. The girl explains to him that if she had stayed in the forest for so long, then nothing would have happened between them. She looks at him sheepishly and says she wouldn't feel that way. The guy blushes. He doesn't understand what she's talking about. The girl's face turns red too, and she says she owes him an apology. Rubia explains that if he is as strong as he is now, she should recommend him to the Imperial College for official recognition as a true master. In that case, he will be able to continue his journey. The girl asks him if he knows why she didn't do it. The main character, still blushing, makes an assumption to himself that maybe she wanted to be with him. He turns away and says that he is not interested in these formalities, and he will not leave Farlane with or without her. The guy also says that he should apologize. Explaining for keeping the secret a secret for a long time, Rubia wonders what exactly he was hiding. The main character is afraid but still tells her that he came from another world. The girl opens her eyes in surprise. Suddenly, one of the townspeople points his finger at the sky and asks what is there. The other person next to him says it's too dark to see. Someone says it's a bird. The second person says it's too big for a bird. The man shouts that she is approaching. He can't believe his eyes and says it can't be. It turns out to be a dragon. The monster attacks the city and all the people run away in fear and screaming. The main character is surprised by the appearance of a dragon. The dragon flies over the city and the people below fall to the ground in fear. However, after a while the dragon just flies away. The main character looks after him. No one understands what's going on. Someone in the crowd asks if he has flown away. A man asks what it was all about. Shaw turns to Rubia and asks if everything is okay with her. The girl responds positively. The main character suggests that she return to the castle. He is worried because he has heard that the number of demons is increasing, but he never thought that dragons could actually appear in the city. They have a business meeting at the castle right now. It is enough to tell only the queen not to raise a panic. The main character quietly informs Layla that the dragon has appeared in the city. The girl doesn't believe it and asks what he said. The next morning, Mizuki contacted him from the Empire. She sent a post bird with a letter on its paw. The queen reads the letter and says that last night the Empire was attacked by dragons. She is horrified by the contents of the letter because the Empire is all in flames from dragon fire. Shaw realizes that this is the dragon they saw yesterday. Layla says he flew west. The main character asks Her Highness what it means. The girl explains to him with horror on her face that this means that he is coming back here again. Everyone was very surprised. The queen ordered her assistant to evacuate Mizuki immediately. She obeys. Shaw thinks to himself that the Empire and the city are about 400 kilometers apart. He asked about the speed at which dragons fly. Stella tells him that they fly about 50-60 leagues per hour. The guy repeats the words about 60 leagues per hour. 1 league is about 1.6 kilometers, which means 100 kilometers per hour. If you take into account the time spent on the letter from Mizuki, in the worst case, the dragon will fly to them in 2 hours. The main character asks Stella and Fei-Fei if they have already fought with dragons. He made this assumption because they had lived long enough. Stella is surprised and answers in the negative. The girl also urges him not to talk about her age. Kid make the assumption that they can block fire with spells. The girl reminds him that they are talking about legendary creatures. The elf says that in the old books it is said that dragons, devouring people, burn the peoples of the continents with their fiery breath. Shaw and Rubia are shocked by her words. The main character begins to feel like he has a headache. He's ready to cry. Layla says emphatically that something needs to be done. The guy offers to evacuate the townspeople to the forest. He addresses them. She responds. Shaw tells her to have all the beastmen run through the city and notify the townspeople. They should tell them to run into the forest in their clothes. The maid says she understands and runs away. The main character says that he will raise his defensive guns on the ramparts and bring them into readiness. He doesn't know if they will work against dragons, but they may be able to scare them away. Rubia says she will fight and Stella says she has always dreamed of it, but she's not sure she can use magic on such a giant. Rubia assumes that she will be able to use it only one time. Shaw says that should be enough. He also turns to Layla and urges her to evacuate. The girl does not understand what he is talking about. She makes it clear that she will never leave her people. Shaw is worried about her. The main character orders the Chica brothers to prepare mortars immediately. He tells them to carry them to the eastern rampart. They agree. He has 6 shells. Actually, there was another cartridge, but they gave it to Countess Miluna for defense. He's going to magically dry out the gunpowder in his reserves. The beastmen in the streets are shouting that the dragon is coming. The girls tell everyone to run into the woods. A little girl grabs the hem of her dress and asks her older sister what will happen to Farlane if a dragon arrives. Maria urges her not to worry and says that she is confident that the master of the show will protect them. The man shouts at his assistants and asks what they are doing. He urges them to get out of here faster. His students stack their tools. One of them says they need tools. The master tells them that if they survive, they will make new ones and orders them to leave everything. It's been 4 hours since they received the news from Mizuki. The knight reports to the queen that the crossbow is launched. She asks him if the residents have left. He responds positively. Layla says there's still no sign of the dragon, but they have to keep them ready. Shaw thinks to himself that it would be better if he didn't come. Privately, he asks the dragon to decide to take a walk somewhere else. Suddenly, something flashes in the sky. The guys turn to the master of the show to look up. The main character anxiously tells them what he sees. Kaka says it's a dragon and Tika shouts that it's coming. The main character asks Nanami for his size and height. The girl says that the wingspan of the dragon is 54 meters, and the height at which it flies is 12 meters. Shaw notices that this is impossible. Nanami says that somehow the dragon cancels the laws of physics. The guy says he knew it. Layla asks them what they are talking about. Shaw turns to face her and explains to her that it is theoretically impossible to fly with such a body and such wings. He makes the assumption that the dragon uses magic to reduce weight. The girl is surprised that he thinks that dragons can use magic. Nanami says that the height of the dragon has become 900. Fei, Stella, Rubia, and Layla are very worried. Nanami says the dragon has dropped to 800 meters. The guy looks up and realizes that the dragon is approaching. A dragon with an open mouth is rushing at them. The Chick brothers exclaim in fright. The show turns to them and suggests not to be shy. He reminds them of the intersection point. The height of the dragon is already 200 meters above the ground. Tika says there's still a little bit left. Shaw shouts sharply for them to shoot now. The guys cover their ears and a volley occurs. The guy screams that there was a hit. The dragon was successfully attacked. They have to take shelter from the wind. The dragon screams loudly and approaches the protective wall very close. The queen shouts at people not to be scared and get ready to attack. She orders all guns to open fire. People shoot arrows from crossbows. They hit the dragon. Tika and Kaka fire their weapons once more. However, the dragon is protected by protective magic. The main character is surprised by the protective magic. Layla is also surprised that he can use magic. Suddenly, the main character gets the idea that if they do not break through the protective magic of the dragon, the magic of his master will not be able to reach him. Suddenly, another explosion occurs. The monster is very angry. The main character is panicking. They wonder what it is. Tika screams that he sees a car. The guy is wondering. He shouts that it's Princess Miluna. The girl is driving. Everyone is surprised that they equipped the car with a mortar. The show calls it absurd. Layla agrees with him and says that this is the whole Miluna. Shaw notices that the dragon's protective magic is fading. He assumes that the sudden attack must have disrupted his concentration. He shouts at Rubia to hurry up. She turns to Stella and asks her for protective magic. The girl screams that she understood her and calls on her friend to smash them all. Rubia orders everyone to lie down and casts an explosive magic spell. Her staff begins to glow. Shaw closes in on Layla, urging her to be careful. When the spell is dispelled, the dragon disappears. Everyone is at a loss. Stella can't believe they did this. Shaw notices that there are no traces of the dragon left and urges everyone to stay on guard. He orders anyone who can move to turn the crossbow, as well as load the mortars. The guy freezes in place and looks up. The dragon is unharmed. He is preparing an attack and the main character looks at it with horror. The dragon prepares an attack, growling loudly. The main character realizes that he is about to release the flame. The queen shouts for evacuation and orders all personnel to evacuate. Stella stands in front of the show and tells everyone to get behind her because she uses her magic to cover them. The girl urges them to be faster. The dragon releases the flame. He is destroying towers, residential buildings, railways, and store counters. The people in the forest are watching this. The boy, who is clutching a book to himself, is terrified that the castle is burning down. Nim is worried about Mr. Shaw. Stella holds back the onslaught of flames with the last of her strength. Fei is covering for Leela. The attack finally ends and the girl falls exhausted. Shaw calls out to her and rushes to help. The castle and its surroundings are on fire. The main character is amazed by such power. He realizes that Stella has just used up all her magic power, and if the flames come again, they will be finished. They have to do something before he decides to attack again. The guy wonders how they can attack him. Even Rubia's mortars and magic reflected off his scales. The show understands that there is nothing they can do. The main character thinks that if he stops now and just starts thinking that they will come to an end. He thought that it was really so difficult to aim where there were no scales. After which he called out to Fei and asked her to aim at his eye. The girl doesn't understand what he's talking about, but the guy says he has an idea. The dark elf says she understands him and jumps forward. She shoots a bow and hits exactly the target. The dragon is very angry. Layla asks him why he makes him angry, because if the flame appears again, they are finished. Shaw explains to her that this is the essence of his plan. He's about to launch his double activation magic into the dragon's open mouth. The main character turns to the Chica brothers and urges them to prepare a mortar. They obey. Shaw realizes that as soon as he does, the mortar will break. He should try his best. The main character casts a spell. He puts all his magic into it and squeezes the air twice. He pushes his spell into the weapon. The Chica brothers understand that the flame is coming. The main character shouts to give them the signal to attack. They're firing guns. The show compresses the air and an explosion occurs. All people are thrown back. The charred dragon falls with a big crash. The main character gets out of the wreckage and hopes that everything worked out for them. He looks down and asks if the dragon is dead. The guy shakes Her Highness by the shoulders to bring her back to consciousness and asks if she is all right. He asks her to come to her senses. Shaw informs her that they have killed a dragon. The girl asks if anyone is alive. She orders those who are alive to scream. People are shouting triumphant cheers. Rubia throws herself at the show. She cries and hugs him. The latter says he is glad that she is safe. He is also happy that Stella and Fei Fei are alive. Stella says they almost died because of his magic. The guy laughs and apologizes. The girl says that he is really a very bad and very dangerous student, and she forbids him to activate compression magic. The main character asks her again and asks about the reason for the ban. Rubia explains that she is considered dangerous because she reveals too much power if you get to the bottom of her. Shaw asks her again. He recalls the ultra-high temperature, ultra-high pressure, and plasma. He finally understands what she's talking about and says it's a thermonuclear reaction. Stella is silent at first, but then asks what it means. The main character says that everything in this world consists of tiny particles. He says that when they are repeatedly compressed and reach ultra-high temperatures, these particles disintegrate and fly apart. Then they collide and merge together. When they do this, they lose their weight. The girl asks what happens when they lose their weight. Shaw explains that weight is converted into a force equal to the square of the speed of light. She asks what is the speed of light. The main character first thinks about 300,000 kilometers per second, and then says that the speed of light is 187,500 leagues, since there are about 1.6 kilometers in 1 league. The girl says it's quite a lot. Stella asks him how he can talk so easily about something that has long been forbidden. She wonders how he even knows all this. The show is a little stewed, but still decides to tell them everything. He calls them to listen to him and says that he has come to them from another world. Fei Fei, Layla, and Stella are absolutely calm. He doesn't understand their reaction and is a little surprised. Stella says she knew it and Layla says he said it a little late. The show is surprised by their strange reaction. The girl says that she did not believe that he came from across the sea. She explains this by saying that she couldn't help but know someone like him. The guy is very surprised and says that it sounded more than plausible. He looks at Rubia and asks if she believed him. The girl says that she thought about something like this from the very beginning. The main character arrives in shock. The queen says it doesn't really matter where he came from. She says that the town and the castle are in complete disarray, and if Farlane wants to regain his former appearance, they will need his help. Rubia asks Shaw if he will stay with them. The main character addresses Her Highness and his master. He's a little hesitant and doesn't know what to say. He does not understand what he would do if he had the opportunity to return to this world. Shaw wonders if he would want to come back. He would post the video again as before. However, he does not understand what would happen next. In the end, he answers his question in the negative. In that world, he had faceless subscribers, and in this world, he had friends. The main character would prefer to live among the inhabitants of Farlane, whom he sees every day. Shaw says with a smile on his face that he will continue his life as a master at Farlane Castle. All the girls are very happy about it and smiling. The question arises what they will do with the dragon. Layla says that of course they will take it apart and turn it into gold. Stella agrees with her and they say that dragons are worth a lot of money. When they found their rotting corpses hundreds of years ago, they raised enough money to buy a small country, and here it is also fresh. The girl shows her approval with her hands. The girl says that if you believe the books, a huge gallbladder has healing properties, and if there are stones in it, then it will cost a fortune. The main character asks about meat. Stella doesn't understand what she's talking about. Shaw asks if they can eat dragon meat. The girl does not give an exact answer. Suddenly, Nanami says that dragon meat is edible. The show praises her and calls her a good boy. He's salivating and he's thinking that they're having dragon steak and hamburgers today. The guy enthusiastically runs towards the dragon. To himself, the main character wonders if it is possible to use dragon bones to make broth. Rubia is outraged by his behavior. Layla smiles and says that Shaw's curiosity knows no bounds, and that's why they love him. Stella says with a smile on her face that she envies him because he has flexible thinking and pure curiosity. He is a real master, according to the girl. A year later, Farlane is still in the process of recovering. Under the restored walls lie the remains of a dragon, which has become the new symbol of the city. All residents look forward to the development of the country after reconstruction. The show still has a lot of work to do. He's minding his own business when Layla comes up behind him. She says he's coming up with some weird theories again. Shaw explains that he is working on a theory that will allow them to talk to each other even if they are at a distance. He cites as an example that Layla will be able to happily chat with Princess Miluna while in the castle. The queen is very excited and asks if it is possible, and then when they will be able to do it. The guy says he doesn't know that. Stella and Rubia enter the room. His master says he's still working. The second girl shows a desire to have a snack. The guy looks at them with a smile on his face and agrees with them, offering pancakes.